to the How do I start these damn things? Oh, it's been a while. Hi, I'm Frater BT, and this is the Esoterinerd Podcast, episode 137. And the title of this one is Mercy Without Restriction, which will make sense by the end of the episode, if it doesn't already, in which Joe Zabinski, you know him, Joe Zabinski, this one, is that where it is? Is that where it pops up? And he's my co-host, we interview HeYamin Neshama, also known as Benjamin. That's who we're talking to today. Now you know what he looks like. That was a link to his website. For those of you watching this on YouTube, for those of you on the audio only, what are you doing on the audio only? Didn't you know there's a YouTube channel called Esoterinerd? Why not immerse yourself twice as much with twice as many senses? 3 if you light the incense when I do. Never mind. So we're bringing back an old segment as well called in which I make you uncomfortable by reading from the technical dictionary of Dianetics and Scientology, according to L. Ron Hubbard. It's not being published anymore. You can find it on my website. I recommend, if you want a recommendation, I recommend avoiding the organization known as the Church of Scientology. But if you're a nerd, if you're looking for something unusual to do, you can download and read the technical dictionary. I won't put a link down below, but there's visually you can see how to get there. Anyway, so at one point, Benjamin mentioned auditing and auditors, and there might be some young folk, there might be some people that are just from a different, not paying attention, not up on their Scientology lingo, and even those of us who are familiar with what an auditor is, might be interesting to see what it says here in the tech dictionary. My old friend and teacher and Gordon was an ex-Scientologist, because William Burroughs was an ex-Scientologist, so Gordon became a Scientologist, so he can become an ex-Scientologist like William Burroughs. That's sort of a joke. That's not literally true. Like, if anybody knows Gordon, like, that's not exactly how it happened. Yeah, I know. It's like a shorthand sort of joke. I'm pretty sure he said it to me one time. But anyway, so he's the one who used to read to me out of the tech dictionary. But my dad was into Earhart seminars training, and Earhart borrowed a lot from L. Ron Hubbard. And so transformations sounds a little familiar-ish to people who are familiar with Scientology lingo as a result. Anyway, so here we go. Auditing. 1. The application of Scientology processes and procedures to someone by a trained auditor. 2. The action of asking a pre-clear a question which he can understand and answer, getting an answer to that question, and acknowledging him for that answer. Auditing gets rid of unwanted barriers that inhibit, stop, or blunt a person's natural abilities, as well as gradiently increasing the abilities a person has so that he becomes more able to, and his survival, happiness and intelligence increase enormously. 3. Scientology processing is called auditing, by which the auditor, or practitioner, listens, computes, and commands. 4. To get a result on a pre-clear. 5. An activity of an auditor taking over the control of and shepherding the attention of a pre-clear so as to bring about a higher level of confrontability. 6. Directing the pre-clear's attention on his own case and directing his ability to talk to the auditor. 7. The reversing of other determined flows by gradient scales, putting the pre-clear at cause again. 8. A communicating process or a communication process with the end goal of raising the ability of another person so that he can handle his bank, body, others, and environment in general. 9. The process of bringing a balance between freedom and barriers. Auditing is a game of exteriorization versus havingness. Now you know. All right. Well, so we're going to talk about Lilith and a little bit about Draconian and Luciferian, and, you know, he's familiar. He's also familiar with Golden Dawn. It's worth it. Stay for the whole thing. Check it out. There's a little more music in it than there has been in the past. The chicken philosophy is leaking in. That was yesterday on Chicken Philosophy, in which I, very honored Frater BT of the Esoterinerd Podcast, did an I Ching thing. So check that out when you're done with this. All right. I guess let's, without further ado, first we'll talk to Joe for a bit, and then he'll come in. Let's get to that interview, shall we?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Nice.
We got it right the first time. I feel like this is the first time we've got it right the first time.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow, it's so blue and red there.
Well, you know, I went to all this trouble to dress up, and you can hardly see it, but the sun will rise. And depending on how long we talk, I'll be in completely full lighting by the end of this.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The sun will rise behind me, so we'll get the secondhand light from the west over here. I mean, there's no window behind me. Never mind, it doesn't matter. So how's it going? How's the weather?
Oh, the weather is better than predicted. We were expecting a large amount of chaos this weekend. We only have half chaos. We're expecting sub-zero temperatures and
oh my god,
and like 10 inches of snow. And we got the sub-zero temperatures, but we only got like 2 inches of snow. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Oh my
gosh,
it's
all right. It's all
you look like you're dressed warm.
Yeah, I am dressed warm today. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool out. If you go different places in my place, like if you go to a place with no windows, then it's nice and cozy. But over here, this is actually a window behind me. It's just covered by a fancy
screen.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How cool. Like you've seen Blazing Saddles, right?
Yeah.
She goes behind the screen. Why don't you make yourself more comfortable? Am I thinking of the right thing? Yeah, something like that. Anyway. Or maybe I might be thinking of two different things. It doesn't matter.
It's all right. It's all right. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm also dressed warm, but it's already warm here, even though it's 6 a.m. So very different weather here. And but yeah, it's when the rest of the world starts complaining about, you know, intense heat, that's when our rainy season starts. And we're like, yay, relief. So, usually around May, we'll go up to the Himalayas. And then we're up there while the rest of India is like, oh my God, it's 48 degrees, which is hot, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 120. And we're up there and we're like, oh, well, up here it's 20, you know, like.
Tra-la-la.
Yeah. And then we come back down and then prepare for the rain. And then when it's usually we have to make ourselves go outside because we get air conditioning addicted. And, should we go outside today? yeah, maybe tomorrow, and then that goes on for months. And we're like, I think it's been a month since we went outside. Oh, well, maybe we should go outside. But then when the rain comes and we're like, let's go outside, we all
Yeah.
just want to go outside like puppies, or whatever. So,
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Have you ever seen cows for the I've only seen cows go outside for the first time online. Like I've never seen it in person.
oh,
But every time
wow.
I see them go out. So starting in late autumn, they go inside and then they just kind of hang out inside until
Mm.
until
Oh,
like
because of
the
the weather.
ground
Yeah.
thaws. And so in the early spring they go outside again. They haven't been outside in like at least like from what I understand like 2 months or something. And so
Oh
when
my
you see
gosh.
them go outside, they bounce around like puppies. Like
Yeah.
they like
Yeah.
jump on their back feet, jump on their forefeet.
Yeah. Especially younger cows.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, here all the cows are outside. So it's trippy. You go to the beach, there's cows. You go to
yeah,
the tropical, you go to the field, there's cows. You go to the big giant leaves, cows. So
yep, yep. Do the cows all have horns?
yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of different styles, different varieties. There's also buffalo and different types of
Hmm.
buffalo, which is
Hmm.
like, for me, that's amazing. I'm like, wow, we've heard legends of buffalo, but my ancestors murdered them all. Like, why? For sport. Like,
No clear
different
reason.
culture. Yeah.
To sell
And here,
hats.
yeah, here you see, here you see them just on the side of the road with like a crane on its back, and it's just, and
Mm.
the first few times you're like, oh my god, I'm like in a National Geographic, like it's like a nature show. But then after 8 years, you're just sort of driving, looking straight ahead, thinking about some mundane thing, surrounded by buffalo with cranes on their backs, and just sort of like, oh yeah, yeah. There's that. It's amazing what you can get used to.
Oh yeah, totally, totally. I hear that. Yep, yep. And it's amazing how like if you're doing something that you're not used to, you're under a lot of stress, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But then when you're doing something that you're used to, even though it's difficult, if you're used to it, you don't have a lot of stress.
yeah. That's true. Or it gets buried deep down, and then there's like good stress, which is like
Yeah.
you want that stress, but it's still stressful. It still wears you
Hmm.
out.
Hmm. Oh yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Anything
Still tired.
social, like we we'll occasionally have people come from other states, like cousins and whatnot, and
Hmm.
and visit, and then we'll be entertaining for a few days, and it's always like a change, different gear, like
Oh,
wake up,
totally.
okay, where are we going to take them today? Like we're the
Yeah,
guides, and
yeah, yeah. That's great. Do you take them
yeah.
anywhere? Do you take them to like any place to eat? Do you go to like
Oh yeah,
special?
yeah, oh yeah. Oh, there's so many. There's such a, like, Goa is a lot of things, and like I've been here long enough that I get sensitive when people misrepresent Goa, or
Mm.
overemphasize one aspect of it over another. It is popular with tourists, um,
Hmm.
but it's also a whole state. So like once you've been here a while, you're like, oh well, the popular with tourist parts are here, here, and here. You go there, there's no tourists, and you go over here, there's no tourists.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And
Like
you kind of get to know the
once you
local
understand the
culture.
way that
Yeah, yeah.
the place is, then you're like, oh well, we'll go across town and
Yeah,
it'll be
yeah.
way quieter.
And
Hmm.
someone told me, isn't it kind of a resort town? And I'm like, well, it's a state, first of all, like it
Yeah.
has resort towns in it. There's like, there's North Goa, there's South Goa, there's like, it's, I think it's about 50% Catholic and 50% Hindu and
Hmm.
50% Muslim somehow,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's the
Yeah.
50% that gets, that it doesn't get as
Yeah.
mentioned as often, but no, they're here. They were here first, actually. Actually, no, I mean, obviously. The Hindus were here first, and then the Muslims came, and then the Catholics came. So it kind of went like that. But then the Catholics made it illegal to be here without being Catholic for 100 years, the Inquisition phase. And so as a result, by 1950, it was 92% Catholic. So people with short memories, the Goan Catholics with short memories like to complain that there's so many non-Catholics in Goa. And it's like, do you remember back a little further than 1950 when there were no Catholics here? You know, like, what are you talking about? Oh, I don't know. And so, yeah. You've
taught me so many things about Goa. Now, whenever I meet someone from Goa, the first thing I ask them is if they're Catholic, and they're like, how did you know that? Why do you know that? Why do you know that? Because they're from, they're from India, and everybody assumes that they're
Hindu. Or
And so
nice.
So I'll tell them, well, it's two things. You have no Hindu imagery around you, and you're from Goa. So,
and your last name is D'Souza. Or Rodriguez or something. And it's all very familiar from coming from California, where so many of the street names and, things like that have Spanish names, from the old days. And here everything's Portuguese. Portuguese is just like a hair different from Spanish. So it's funny because people ask me, and I'm the resident expert in American pop culture, Catholicism, and Portuguese, just by default, because I have this much knowledge of Spanish and Latin and just Catholicism.
Because you've been outside Goa, basically.
Yeah. And I wasn't paying attention to American pop culture when I was there, but still I'm the expert.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's like you just have so much lived experience that you don't mean to be an expert, but
you just absorb it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I have a friend. She's in a band, and she showed me. She was playing me songs that they were thinking of recording. Right. They were just like drafts of songs. And I was like, oh yeah, that one would really be good. But if you could just syncopate it about 3 measures in, it'd be a little bit better. And then so I started to describe the rhythm and everything. And she was like, are you a percussionist? And I was like, no, my parents are music teachers. It gives you hidden powers. And so you have no choice in the matter. So you might as well use them.
Yeah. One thing that's fun is being the son of an English professor and being in a country with its own version of English.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So from day one, I was shutting my mouth and get like, oh, ow, my thumb. Is it paining? I'm like, well, that's a new one. What you mean? Does it hurt? No. Is it paining? Is it?
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah. And whenever you hear stuff like that, often you think about what they're saying. You kind of analyze their grammar a little bit. Wait, what they're asking totally makes sense. And it just makes you realize, no, what I've been saying before was awkward, but now I just can't get out of it.
And I'm so used to my little California slangs and shorthand that if I'm not stopping to think about what I'm saying, people are like, what? I didn't follow any of that, because I'm using a lot of shortcuts and colloquialisms and whatnot. There was one point where PU asked me, could you check in the Almira and see if, and I'm like, in the what? And she's like, the Almira, the Almira where the clothes are kept. And I'm like, oh, you mean like the cabinet? Yeah, it's that's an English word, Almira. And I looked it up, and it was like that was an English word up until about the 1840s, except they still use it in India. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. And the amount of people who speak English as a second language, at least in India, I think might rival all of the English speakers in the rest of the world.
Oh
Like if you
yeah, that
add
makes
them all
sense.
up, you know.
That makes sense. That's really
So
funny.
yeah, it's more of a common language than Hindi actually, because then you go
Yeah.
down south and a lot of people don't speak Hindi, but they speak English.
It
So
makes me wonder if if over time English is going to become more like, well, English the world over is going to become more like Indian English. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, because Hollywood. I mean, up until it's still to some degree, like you'll notice Americanisms in India. I mean, it's a lot of it's British. They'll say the lift, not the elevator, but
mm,
they get kind of used to American English from watching, you know, Vampire Diaries and whatnot.
oh yeah, yeah.
So that's always
It's
fun.
the only way to learn
Yeah.
pop gothic
So
horror.
so Esoterinerd,
Oh yeah.
what what you been up to in the esoteric uh realm lately?
Oh, in the world of the esoterica. Um, hmm. I mean, if you remember from last time, like things really haven't changed that much. It's just that
Hmm.
well, they have and they haven't. Like a lot of things have come to fruition. I've made it. So I had this long project. Here, I'll show you. Uh,
Okay.
the long project is to analyze this.
Nice. Good name for
It's
a movie
it's
series.
it's 1450 pages, I think, all told, and it's terribly obtuse and
Mm.
obscure. It's the sort of thing that you can't. If you read it once, you will be lost. If you read it three times, you will begin to understand. Then try to write it down, and you'll find
Mm.
out no, you don't understand yet. And then read it many more times, and then you'll get it. You'll understand, and then oh man, because like once you understand, then you get to the bones of the techniques that he's talking about, and the bones of it are very are they're simple, but there's features of Benatti's astrology that have gone unnoticed. And so, and like when you get to the actual like mechanisms that he's talking about, there's little pieces of it that you can start to pick up. For example, so I finally I have gotten to a point where I have a good understanding of the way that he works solar returns.
Mm.
Not obvious at all, but but if you go through it enough, you'll start to see how he does like solar returns for people. And and there's, just for example, like there's a technique that he uses where he actually uses what we call transits now to figure out the timing of events.
Now,
Um,
what century was he writing from?
this was in 1280, so
Oh
13th
wow.
century.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow, wow. Hmm.
yeah. So it's all, so I mean, he wrote it in medieval Latin, which was translated to English, and then
Yeah,
I'm using
yeah.
the English version to slowly
Hmm.
like extract it all. And so I have about I have about I think 80 pages written just about solar returns.
Hmm.
And then there's much more involving just natal charts, involving just like what
Yeah,
we understand to be natal astrology. Um,
yeah.
I made like major inroads into that, but then I realized that just understanding like that was too much. Like just understanding solar returns. There's a whole volume on that, and then understanding pieces of his natal astrology. And that's not even like he wrote. So this is it's two volumes, obviously I just showed you, but there's 10 like books in it. And his
Hmm.
and even just like one book or really half a book like is like just analyzing it is the equivalent of a full book.
Right.
Um, Analyzing pieces of the natal astrology, those are all like full books. I was like, I can't, I shouldn't tackle all of this at the same time. I should just like
Mm,
do one,
mm.
then another. And so, so yeah, so like that's like my, I don't know what to call it. That's like my hard science esoterica, like
Nice.
yeah, getting into the numbers, getting into the understanding, and working with it with specific examples to say, oh, this is super accurate. I found pieces of Benatti that are not accurate at all. Like sometimes he'll explicitly give techniques, and you'll see what he's saying with the techniques, and then you try it out and you're like, there's no way that this made any sense even when he wrote it. um, but then there's other times where like you see what he's saying, you try it out, and you're like, holy cow, is this thing ever accurate? um
Hmm.
yeah, and so I'm trying to like, as I work, so there's pieces of the solar return stuff that I'm going to describe, but I also eliminate from examples, because I'm like, this, I can't show that this is helpful.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
But there's other pieces where I'm like, this is eminently helpful. You totally, people should totally know about this.
And what was his name again? Benetti?
Benatti,
Benatti.
Bonatti.
There was
Yeah.
years ago, I remember there was a compilation CD of Devo's greatest hits and Devo's greatest misses.
Hmm,
So you
that's
could do
great.
something similar with
That's great. That's really
Benatti's
funny.
greatest hits, Benatti's greatest
His
misses.
greatest misses. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like just a lot of just a lot of writing and like a ton of analysis, and that's the more, I don't know what to call it. That's the more like
Like
sciencey,
mercurial.
mercurial knowledge sort of things that I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the other thing I'm doing is a couple months ago I did like an analysis of the Abramelin work.
Mm,
um, and I got it, and like I extracted like, basically, I mean, Abramelin. If you ever read Abramelin, like it's not terribly complicated. It's just
mm,
he gives different pieces of the overall work at different times. So you have to pay
mm.
attention, and like pay attention to the little words, little details, and everything to work out what he's saying. Okay, phase one, you definitely need to do phase two, etc. Anyway, way at the end, like it's a footnote essentially. He says that it is it is instructive and makes the work easier if you read the Psalms every day. And he said,
Mm.
I'm paraphrasing, that's not an
Yeah,
exact
yeah.
quote. And then he says, if possible, he says, try to read all the Psalms twice a week.
Hmm.
And I was like, that seems like a lot of Psalms, right? Because there's 150 Psalms, and he wants you to read them twice a week.
Yeah.
Uh,
They are
but
pretty
then
short though.
they are pretty, for the most part, yeah.
Mm.
Uh, and so I was like, well, how realistic is that? How realistic is that to actually do? Like, is that all you would do if you were doing the Abramelin work and you decided to incorporate the Psalms? And so I started working the Psalms on a regular basis. Um, where at first it was 15 Psalms 3 times a day,
Mm.
and then it became, and I slowly backed off. But that first period was very interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so one, like, I don't know how to put this. Like, one feature of working with any kind of like modern adept school is that your sphere of sensation, aka your aura, is more sensitive than it would otherwise be. And
Hmm.
at any rate, like if you've worked it at all, then you know that
Hmm.
like the middle pillar is going to sensitize you,
Yeah.
and that's just going to be a feature of living your life after that. The
Hmm.
Psalms, the Psalms very much. magnify that work. Like
Mm.
you could essentially, if you just left out the middle pillar stuff and you just I feel like anyway, I can't do this because I'm too far gone now, but I feel like if you just did the Psalms and left out the other aura work, your aura would probably be heavily affected anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Thinking of some of the devout, like Hasidic, like that. I mean, they do more than just read. They also have like physical uh, talismans and things like that that they carry on their body and things like that. And I think there's a
Yeah.
physical movement and a breath involved in how
Yep.
they pray. So maybe that's not the
Yep.
best example, but there's an aura definitely around people who study scripture from a certain angle. Like if you're studying it in order to condemn people on television, then it's a different sort of aura. An aura, but like,
Mm.
definitely a different type of
Mm.
aura, that charismatic televangelist, kind of vibe. But yeah,
He
nice.
also has an aura. Yeah, that's true.
I ran
Um,
into a psalm recently when because I don't know, you've seen my shenanigans. I'm all over the place, but I was reading some Nag Hammadi, and so to it was for a while. I have that chicken wheel where there's the different colored petals, and each pet color has a different vibe. And so basically, we were reading Martin Luther for like 2 years,
mm,
and then started reading Nag Hammadi, and then finished Martin Luther. And so then all that was left was Nag Hammadi. I mean, as far as like there's Carl Jung, there's I Ching, there's Sufi stuff, and then Divine Pymander. But as far as Christianity, there was heretical Christianity, and that's it. And so I decided to open every episode of Heretical Christianity with a bibliomancy selected quote from Philokalia, just to like counterbalance with some not only orthodoxy but orthodoxy as well, and and so one of them, it was talking about overcoming evil within, and overcoming your own sinful thoughts and that kind of thing. And then randomly it says, and slaughter all the sinners in the land. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? And it turns out it was a
oh yeah,
psalm. It was a reference to a psalm, but
yeah. The
I went off on a
Psalms.
tangent about how problematic it is that there's so much metaphorical violence that perhaps
Oh,
wasn't always
totally.
metaphorical.
Yeah, it's not metaphorical violence. Like it's violent. Like you can't if you're going to work the Psalms as a spiritual practice, you have to have a little bit of a fuzzy attitude about what exactly each psalm is saying. You have to get through all of them and then see what happens to you as a result of
Right.
reading all of them. Because like
Yeah.
some of it is like it's just unbelievably violent. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was at war. I mean, isn't that the idea? As young David was being persecuted by all the surrounding, nations or whatever, and
I mean,
and
sometimes it's like just somebody, somebody's being slandered, and so
mm,
like there are like some of the craziest curses I've ever seen
cut
are
out
in
their
Psalms.
tongues. Yeah, yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
exactly. Or I mean, I don't even want to say what it says when there's a story about this group of musicians that
mm,
they're part of the exile. So the I forget who did this. I think it might have been the Ninevites. They uh they took over Jerusalem entirely, and
mm,
they sent the Israeli people. They scattered them. This was the first
mm,
exile, and it's a story of these musicians that are sent out in the first exile, and they're told to sing temple hymns to their captors when they've been exiled out of Jerusalem. And
mm,
those curses are like the nastiest curses I've ever seen. They are
mm,
unbelievably violent. They're so violent. But
mm.
my point is that like that maybe the Psalms can have a good purpose too. Um,
Right.
yeah. Like what seems to happen, what happens is like as you read them, so the first important thing is that you read them aloud. Um, what happens is you after about 10 Psalms or so, two things happen. You start to go into a trance and and you start to get tired.
Mm.
And that combination of things, I don't know why, but that combination of things seems to put you in this like dreamlike state so that by the time you get to the 15th Psalm and you're quiet, then everything relaxes. Like your tongue relaxes. You're in a little bit of a trance, and but you've been working hard to get to a divine state for all this time. And so
Mm.
you enter this state, and then once
Yeah.
you're in that state, that's where you start to spiritually grow.
Mm. Very interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
for me, I think I at this stage in life, I started out with blockages against Judeo-Christianity. I mean, like my grandma always dragging me to church, and then my dad, like, well, anyway, long story short, I've talked about that stuff. But the whole like, I am doing God's will, and so the devil has sent all of these people to try to stop me, reminds me a little too much of the brainwashing of our mutual shared past.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I mean like if you're set off by a God versus devil analogy, like that isn't really in the Psalms. Like it's
No,
totally
no,
it's
it's
just
it's more specific. It's the other orders, the other people with their
Mhm.
false gods, and and I'm here with the real God, and God
Yeah,
slaughter my
totally.
enemies, and then I can serve you. And that was kind of like that was the vibe back then, and
Hmm.
with David Griffin or whatever,
Hmm.
like the
Hmm.
the enemy of the week was, or whatever ex members, Fred or Ka, or the ex-wife, or whoever was the Canaanites that day, or the Philistines, or whatever other problematic biblical
Yeah. Yeah.
enemies
I could definitely see how that
just
would
get
make you
grafted on.
uncomfortable.
And I kind of I well, I mean, and observing how like American evangelists kind of operate, and the assumptions being made, and how they'll say something and jump to something else, and a lot of people will be like, how did you jump to there? And I'll be like, I know how they jump to there, you know Psalm 150, or
Yeah.
like. But so it's
Yeah.
a challenge. I mean, in my mind, it's a challenge how I think a lot of it is what you, that maybe this isn't just about the Psalms, but like what you bring into it. Because one person can read the Psalms and have a spiritual experience that relaxes them and brings them closer to God. Another person can read the Psalms and feel like more of an oppressed victim in their cult.
Hmm.
Another person can read the Psalms and then hop in a tank and then roll over some people in Gaza. And another people can read.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
I said that one real fast, but like, there is a popularity of the Psalms among soldiers there, and
Hmm.
but another person can read the Psalms and then go out with a Palestinian flag and their long Hasidic beard and chant, not in my name. And
Hmm.
so so
Hmm.
so it's like it's a powerful thing, but it's kind of all in how you use, like the
Hmm.
old saying, it's not the size,
That's a really good
it's
call. And
the
it's
angle.
like the
No, never
yeah,
mind.
you're
That's the
totally
same.
right. Like the Psalms themselves, they don't really espouse any particular view. The only like view that you get out of it is that God is acting as a companion for you. You know what I mean? That's really like the
Mm,
only
mm.
that's really the only theme that's consistently there. Everything else is what you're
Yeah,
bringing to that relationship, you know?
yeah.
And
Let
sometimes
me
sometimes it's like the
send an
human side of that
invite.
relationship is pretty messed up. other times the human side of that relationship is quite beautiful,
Yeah,
you know.
that's true. I asked my priest just because I wanted to hear what he said, and you're supposed to ask your priest things when I was going through my joining the Eastern Rite of the Catholic Church phase. And I asked him, like, why is God so different in the Old Testament? Like I'm a 3-year-old or something, like why, Father? Why, like Jesus came and said God is love. But then I read, some of this stuff at the walls of Jericho and Noah's flood and everything. And gosh, that seems very strict, like you could say it's tough love or whatever. And he of course said something I think is a pretty common thing to say, which is that as we changed, our perception of God changed, or the way that God related to us changed as we changed. Like you don't raise a 3-year-old the same way you raise a 14-year-old. And but then he said, as humanity changes moving forward, then our relationship with God will change moving forward. I'm like, really? And so that means that this institution will become arcane if it isn't already, like that kind of thing. It's like, that's where I come in. I thought no new prophecies.
Never mind about that.
Muhammad came around. It's like, no new prophecies. Joseph Smith, and it's like that includes you. So yeah, it's been fun. Bouncing. My approach isn't for, it's more for enjoyment's sake. Like, so it's exercising Mercury, but in a sun kind of way with some Venus mixed in, and you know what I mean? Like, so giving presentations of something, but then moving to a completely different subject the next time, then moving to a completely different subject, then doing Buddhism, and then late Buddhism, early Buddhism, tantric Buddhism, and then like ascetic samurai Buddhism, and then and just kind of like, okay, hopping from here to here to here to here to here to here to here. I think with the overall intent of giving myself something to do, but also, like encouraging a sense of, well, let's look at this. What is this? That's interesting. Okay. And what about this? And so for a while, I think and it's been a nice mirror, because then I get to see myself reading it and see how I'm responding and ask myself, why am I responding? Why am I giving Mohammed a pass and being so hard on Martin Luther for you know what I mean? And okay, let's look into this. And then, okay, so then, all right, I'll start to criticize Mohammed. Oh, that doesn't feel right. Like that feels uncomfortable for me, and I don't feel safe, and, so no, I mean, there's been things in reading Sufism, because you read the popular Rumi poems, and it's like, yeah, dance, it's all a spiral, it's like the galaxy, it all goes round and round. And then but then she's like, okay, I like Sufis, let's see, what does the Sufi have to say here? In the end times, the Mahdi will come with a sword and clarify which kind of Islam is correct and murder everyone else. And it's like, this is the Sufis. This is oh, okay. Is it a metaphor? No. Like, oh, all right. I guess I don't like the Sufis as much as I thought I did, but I've committed to read all these books, so I'll keep reading. And then eventually, after a few months of that, then he moves on to another subject, and it's like, oh, good. Like, So yeah, no, it's been interesting, looking into these different things. And I like Dogen. I read it a couple of days ago, and every once in a while, if he gives a lecture and it's just like not inspired, like I can tell when he's having a good day. Like, and I, as a fellow content creator, or a fellow, former teacher and all that, I know that there's been days where I come in and go, okay, guys, today we're going to talk about geomancy, but then there's other days where I come in and say, okay, why is it that you and me and all of us, and there's like a Holy Spirit kind of flowing, that day. And so it is reading Dogen's lectures, from the 1200s, that same time period, a different part of the world where, sometimes
totally. That's a really good call.
Yeah, and he's often grouchy, which is also fun. Dogen, the Zen master, he's like, he gets very grouchy. At people who
funny
died
is
600 years earlier, like, okay.
I see the same thing in Benatti
Sorry, you were saying.
sometimes. Like he
Mm.
mostly he's difficult, he's obtuse, but he's also very thorough and subtle. Sometimes though he's just difficult and obtuse.
Oh, he didn't get the link. Yeah, and that's I kind of vaguely made reference to it, but like I find that when someone expresses a sense of my way is the only right way, it bugs me. But if they're an oppressed minority in the land that they're in, I'll give them a pass. But if they're in the fascist majority, which is fascism in the name of the tradition that they're saying is the one true way, then I feel more angry in response to their one true wayism. And then I'm thinking, but it's not their fault that their side is winning. You know what I mean? I mean, winning, like,
no, I know what you mean. I tend to think that so one thing I keep coming back to is that the reality that we're in is divinely inspired. So what that means is that the people that are around you and the experiences that you're having, God is participating in all of that stuff. I'm not saying that God's causing your pain. I'm not saying that God is causing your joy or anything like that. But I am saying
not saying he's not, but yeah.
I'm not saying he's not either. Like I'm saying
he's not going.
I got it to work.
Hey!
Hi.
Yay! Welcome.
Can you guys hear me?
All right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Very nicely. Yeah.
For a sound engineer, that took way too long.
Then again, if you weren't a sound engineer, could you do it at all? I don't know.
Yeah, probably not.
So, am I pronouncing it correctly? HeYamin Neshama?
Yep.
Okay. And also Ben?
Or Benjamin, either or. Oh,
okay.
And, don't mention the 2 channel because people don't.
Yeah, I know how that goes. I do a similar dance of veils, but I let people stumble their way across and go, oh, what? And then now with the Pymander Aquarian playlist, it's all just out in the open. Nice.
So what do you want to be called?
It doesn't matter. You can call me HeYamin. You can call me Yamin. You could call me Benjamin or Ben if you want. I am a pony of many tricks, I guess. So
nice.
I'm not worried about it.
Great.
Nice. Which key is that you got on the necklace? Is that a key or
this is just Lilith's sigil. Yeah, I wear it all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a 2009.
It looks like a Saturn
sigil.
with a line or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So her most used sigil is this one, but it's 2000. It was made in 2009. I think.
Okay.
If it doesn't blur it out.
Yeah. Now I don't know very much about. I've heard people say that. Before the Talmud mentioned her name, she was a goddess and got the same treatment that Astarte got, and Ashera and others that were sort of made into demons. Perhaps Baal was represented, yellow propaganda, they used to call it. Let's take this competing thing or this thing we don't like and make into something vile. And so a lot of people have something. Yeah, why would you wear something? She's the queen of knighted of demons. What the fuck? So if you don't mind, could you tell us just a little bit about, because I know that you've been working a lot with Lilith.
Yeah.
Could you give us the beginner's intro? I just wandered in. I'm 14.
Oh yeah,
Protestant Christian, and I'm interested in your cult.
Yeah, exactly. Interested in the cult of Lilith, entering the Temple of Babylon to try and get some much needed restoration. So it's interesting because when I look at Lilith personally, I look at her from a wide array. So my first introduction to her was I was Christian for a very long time. And seeing that in the Bible, seeing stuff that was not really necessarily telling of who she is in any way. And then as I was thinking, is
she mentioned in the Bible?
She is mentioned in the Bible in Revelations.
Yeah.
She's riding the beast.
Okay.
Yep, and she's mentioned.
I thought that was they use a different name.
Yeah, they mention her like 3 other times, and in as Mark says in the Neshama, who is Lilith the Younger, is mentioned in the Muslim book, the Quran. Yeah, she is mentioned as the evil woman.
Interesting.
So,
right,
getting into like an explanation of who Lilith is, one of the things that Mark tells me all the time, and I've experienced from my years of working with her, my couple of years of working with her, is you can't put her in a box. So you try to put her in a box, she'll break out of it. She'll show you something completely different. But the aspects of, like, people usually use the left-hand path work with her. Though she's Mary Magdalene in many ways too. She's the divine feminine. She's also the dark divine feminine, or the dark feminine. And but trying to wrap it up in a basic way, I think it's the easiest way to put it is the fact that she's this goddess, and she's looked at as a demon. But she's this goddess that's an old goddess. She's quite old. As old as Yod-He, Vau-He is when you're looking back, when you're looking beyond the Jewish tellings of these beings. And I didn't know this, but Mark told me that she's got banana language for her name, which is consonant vowel. And that is the oldest type of name. So Inanna, Lilith, there's a few others as well that predate writing, that predate Akkadian. But how I work with her is both the right-hand path and the left-hand path. So I'm not just using one path to work with her. In Circle of the Dark Mother, we work with angels, we work with Lilith, we work with, all of these. And my personal practice, I work, both sides. I work with Goetic, I work with angelic, I work with, ancestral. But for how you approach learning Lilith, learning what is Lilith, who is Lilith, how do I connect with her? It's more of if you go before any goddess, if you go before any being, it's like there's a respect there, and if you show that respect in a way that you're like, because there's plenty of people, I know you've said in videos that you don't do practical magic, you never really had a use for it, and I think that in my practice, I don't usually do practical magic that much. Most of my magic is that I'm working for the spiritual reason, to elevate my spirit, to elevate myself up. That's why I've gone through the trees, and I'm working through that magical systems, the Kabbalah with the Qliphoth, and I'm doing that to elevate myself. But Lilith and all of this stuff is to explain that it's an expansive, she's not this being that we're just worshiping for no reason. It's not like, oh, we want this edginess. And I don't think even people who write books that seem like they're on that level, I think that the reason why they write it that way is to kind of like attract people to something that's going to change them dramatically. And I really think that when I look at like a history of Lilith in the aspect of where did she come from? Well, she came from a long time ago. I think Madame Blavatsky said that Lilith is, I'm gonna butcher it, but she's like basically this really old destroyer, and she's dressed up in a way that makes people want to work with her. But I don't think of her as, I think of her as,
how is she dressed up?
That, she is
yeah. You mentioned she's dressed in a way, because I thought of Kali when you said that, and then she's dressed up with all the skulls and everything, but but she's thought of as she's respected as a goddess in this land, by many people. Not demonized, not made into the most evil thing you could possibly talk about, and but still a feminist icon, a little bit, like similar to Lilith, but in a different context. Coming from the mainstream here, where Lilith is coming from the it appears to be the shadow side of the mainstream. You know what I mean? Like but yeah. So you mentioned she was dressed up. Do you mean figuratively dressed up, or because I don't know how she's dressed?
Well, there's always naked, but she's also like, it seems like she's
right. Okay,
put
that works.
into this way of being like the idea of the deities being naked in pictures. They're bearing everything. They're not hiding anything.
Right.
They're giving you the full picture of their knowledge. But I think like people will like the sexuality, the femininity, like all of the things that are going to draw people to be like, oh, she's a feminist icon, even though,
right.
And also it's funny because when you look at her and so she was goddess of pre-Babylon, but in Babylon they worked with her, and Mark has been going back into the Mesopotamian stuff and learning all this stuff about Mesopotamia, and he's been teaching us all this interesting stuff. And it's funny because of the fact that like when the Jewish people escaped Babylon, when they conquered Babylon and finally escaped because they were trapped in Babylon, which Babylon was a traded city. Like everybody was fighting over Babylon for hundreds of years. It was the priests that were astrologers were being the priests that were astrologers kept getting just traded between these different because they were, and that's where most modern astrology comes from. But when they escaped, they wanted to demonize all of these beings, and they connect Lilith to like eater of babies and all this horrible stuff, which I have an interesting thing to say about that. But it's interesting because of the fact that when they're like, oh, we had to hear all these praises of your guys' deities when we were trapped. So now we're going to take them all and we're going to put them in the demons category, which when in Mesopotamia or Babylon, they had the diamonds, they had that, but any god that wasn't the city's god was put into a category of like a demon, but they weren't like demons. Right. They weren't like what we think of.
They like were rival just, cities god or something.
Yeah. And they weren't looked down on either. They were just seen that way. But it's funny because it makes me the Jewish people, which nothing against them, like what else would someone do other than we finally escaped and defeated your stronghold? We're just gonna make our god. We're gonna exalt our god, and we're gonna push yours down. And I studied Jewish mysticism long before I was a Lilith devotee. So, but I think it's funny because there's this amulet that protects babies from Lilith. But they use Lilith in it, so it makes me always think, like, what if Lilith was actually protecting those babies? You know, what if she was a
right?
part of the yeah. And but I find it interesting with that, just because of when they brought her in and they like demonized her and did all this stuff to put her down. She started like being like, oh, that's the role I'm going to play, so I'm going to play it. And she did that to stay relevant and be able to be a part of that society, because she still played her part in that society. So even if she wasn't doing evil things, you know. So
right.
That's my
I mean, infant death syndrome is was, up until modern medicine, was, you know, an all-pervasive thing. So to pin that all on one person, I mean, later in Europe, you have people blaming the Jews for things like that. So like, no, infant death syndrome isn't Lilith's fault. It's your fault. Like, what? You know, let's see how it feels to be so hated by people for just such a stupid reason, you know, like blaming nature on, you know, a scapegoat.
Well, and it's like, why would you and it, with anything, this is why, like, you know, there's a reason why the tree of life has severity and mercy, because you got to pair the two. And so it's like, if you're looking at one side with, you know, if you're looking at one side without looking at the other, you're going to get that intensity of it, not of the unbalanced nature of things. So it's like, if you're not connecting those things, then you're not actually being respectful to the process. Joe has said in one of the videos, the podcast, that why would you want to rush through any of this? And he was talking about the Golden Dawn, and I think about that a lot. Is why would you want to rush through any of this? You don't want to rush through any of it, because if you're rushing, you're leaving things behind.
Who's Joe? Is Joe me? Did I say that?
Yeah. There's a popular short on the Esoterinerd channel called "Rushing Through the Golden Dawn Grades," and I couldn't help but thinking of like certain tantric practices, like who wants to rush through, you know, the act of making love, you know, for instance.
Sure.
Well, it's I think Alan Watts said, what's the point of rushing through? The point of music isn't to get to the end as fast as possible.
Right. Yeah, like the point of life is death. Right.
You know, I think it's really interesting
Play it as
that
fast
Lilith
as possible.
I think it's really interesting that Lilith has been as you know, has been so varied in her theme. I've noticed a lot that when working with like there's there are the goddesses that I'll call like lady goddesses, like Venus, for example, is a lady, is like a lady goddess. Like when you meet, you know, if you meet Venus, then like she's soft, and there's usually like flowers and roses involved, and there's like, and she's gentle, and she, you know, and like and she's abundant. And then there's like elder lady goddesses, and they're like, I have in mind like Hecate and Nephthys. They seem to communicate fundamentally differently. They don't, you know, they don't. When you're speaking to somebody like Venus, well, you can speak to her, she'll respond not she'll respond closer to verbally, right? And you can extract like verbal information from this communication, right? But when you're working with like elder ladies like this, they're almost like older than language. And so like you just have to approach it like as a complete person, and you have to listen really close. And when you do, then they don't communicate verbally. Instead, they communicate by just taking your whole being and shaking it up. You know what I mean? Whether that shake up is just like sudden insight, or whether that shake up is like suddenly being overwhelmed by fear, or anything like that. They tend. This is just something I found over the years is like these elders tend to communicate in biologically elder ways. Does that make sense? And the more time that you spend with them, the more you work that way. You know what I mean? And it's really hard. This is all sound and vision, and so I can't even approach what it's actually like. But I think, HeYamin, I feel like you're picking up what I'm putting down right now.
Yes. Yes. So it's interesting because I have a intense experience with Asmodeus when I was working with him, and he's paired with Neyama, so he's really close to Lilith in a lot of ways. But the first time I worked with him, that was like a really intense time. I was using the Lemegton, the clavicula system, and I was doing that, and I was doing it alone. And it was like a stormy day, and it was really intense. And I was summoning him specifically, and I'm using this as an explanation for what you're saying, because it's harder to explain with Lilith for me, but this experience really explains. And I was holding the sigil, and I had done the invocation. I had set the stage, and I was on the stage, and I was ready to play the player, and I do the invocation. I'm holding the sigil, and I put blood on it because I work in that way, and I'm holding it the whole time. I pick up my black mirror, and then all of a sudden I get this rush of all of these thoughts, feelings, fears, sensations, things that have been traumas from the past that are just all coming up, and they're all happening in that moment, and they're happening to me. And it's not so that I fear it, it's so I release it. And it was really interesting because I'm sitting there and all these things are going, and he's not saying a word. And I can see him in the black mirror, not saying a word. And it's just rushing through me. And I'm like, and I was like, he's speaking without speaking. And what you said says it explains that experience perfectly. And I've had that with Lilith. I do meditations where where she shows me something, she takes me somewhere, because I sit at her altar every night. I do constant work with her, and she'll take me places, and she'll show me things, and she'll teach me things, because she's a great teacher to me. And I mean, what's the point of doing any of this work if we're not looking for the right teacher to teach us the way that we need to move? So, but yeah, no, that. I got chills thinking about that experience when you were talking about that and explaining it. I'm like, oh my God. And that's exactly what it is. It's not these beings. And even working with Yod, like if you're working with one of the 72 or 144 names, if you're doing something with that, I mean, assuredly you're getting the same kind of communication. If you're looking at these old beings, they're going to communicate in ways that we can't, in the modern day, can't even fathom unless we've, unless we live in India.
Yeah, I mean, well, that kind of ties into what we were talking about. Do you remember what you were in the middle of saying just before he arrived? We were talking about the Psalms and how different they are from, like in their time and place. Like now we can think of the violence as metaphorical, but it wasn't metaphorical when they were writing it down.
No, they meant everything that they were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
They put a net in my path, and I bowed down, and they dug a pit in front of me, and they've fallen into it. It's like, did that really happen?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, he's just reminiscing about what happened last week. Yeah.
Thrown into the lion's den. It's like, oh shit. Yeah, someone's gonna need you to be
the actual lion's den.
Yeah.
Now it's figurative. Now it's a figure of speech, but back then it was a den with lions.
Yeah, it's like they're standing around the water cooler like, oh, he got thrown in the lion's den last week. It's like, do that nowadays. And
yeah. And I mean, from that perspective, when you're going through all that and then you say, Lord, smite them and pluck out their eyeballs, like it's actually kind of balanced in that time and place where today, if you were to say, Lord, may Sarah have a bad hair day today, then maybe that's the same level of like the modern day equivalent of a psalm or something,
Yeah.
Maybe life was just so much more violent than that. Like, all I'm asking is for them to die. Like, it's not that bad. Leaving their family out entirely.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, because
may his shares go down, like, or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a pox upon his household, and it's not necessarily like I think that in that time they conceived things differently, like maybe the death was a spiritual death, maybe the death that they were trying to force people to have was something that wasn't necessarily maybe physical, but maybe it was something to negate the reality they were existing in. And I know that, I mean, if we're looking back at those times, they're doing curses with prayer to this Almighty God. So it's like, like, why are you using a means of spiritual enlightenment, spiritual growth, And if you look at a lot of the things that are written in the Bible, a lot of it, or any form of Abrahamic religion, a lot of it is angry, and it's like, why is everybody so angry? And it's like, because they did this thing to us, or we right. It's like, why don't you work on some of that the spiritual enlightenment there?
They are. They're going to kill this other guy, and then everything's going to get better.
Yeah. If only I could kill all my enemies, then I too. And now you see that as an add-on.
The TV. One true real
kill
estate
all your
contract
enemies with this device. Yeah. This cream will kill all of your enemies. I think they had that back then too. The magical salves.
Probably. There was some early Christian curses, like in the name of the Virgin Mary, may my enemy become sterile, like stuff like that. But that didn't fly in the canonized, But.
With how little contraception there was back then, that might have been a blessing to some people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Yamin, you were talking about how you had all of these impressions coming through you when you contacted a spirit, right? Mm-hmm. But the spirit wasn't saying anything, and they were what you said, they were speaking without speaking, right? How do you suppose? I guess my question is, how do you suppose that relates to? Because some spirits do speak, right? When when they do speak, how do you think those two relate? Like why do you think it is that some spirits speak and some spirits don't?
Oh, it's I mean, personally from my experience working with a lot of beings, I most of the time I they do speak, you know. It's like most communication that I'm having with Lilith, with Bronwyn, I work with Welsh deities too, and with Lucifer, I work with Lucifer and Draconian path stuff, or my ancestors. My ancestors, that took a lot of work to get it to where I could speak with my ancestors when I get deep in meditation. And doing work with archangels, doing work with, I mean, Sandalphon, when I invoke her, she immediately, because I channel, so she immediately, when I'm using my system to invoke her to work with when I was working with the first sphere of the Tree of Life, when Malkut, when I was doing it myself, because Mark took me through them to initiate me, but then I'm doing it my own work to kind of like further like a growth. And when I was using my system to do it, she came in the first time and she grabbed the Palo Santo stick, and she's not saying anything, and she's burning this stick, and she's put it in the candle flame, and I'm staring at her sigil, and she put it in the candle flame, she lights it, blows it out, and I'm like, I know this isn't me doing this. I know this is Sandalphon here doing this, and then I feel this energy shift, and then I feel things opening up in my energy body and me connecting deeper into the sphere of Malkut, and then we started having a conversation. But the conversation wasn't necessarily like, it's almost like I have a thought, and then I have another thought, and then I have another thought, but they're answering each other, and it's interesting because in my brain I'm hearing multiple. It's not like I'm hearing multiple voices, but I'm hearing different tones. But the tones are almost like a vibration. It's not. Yeah. So, and I think that the reason why people communicate, or different beings and spirits communicate differently, is just because that's how they've learned to work with people, and how it's going to work with, like, how something happens with me isn't how it happens with someone else. You know, a person on the other side of the world could invoke the same being in the same way and have a completely different like telepathic experience, or communicative experience, or sensory experience, because they're opening up within us our own energy experiences that are going to allow us to be able to grow and enhance ourselves with them. So I don't think it's personally, I don't think it's like them. I think it's us. You know, in short, you know, it's us. But my experiences, it's almost like you have to fine tune your, you know, you got to turn the dial and kind of like, you know, tap into that. And not to sound Scientologist or anything, but you know, we're auditing. You know, we're doing it. We're doing it within ourselves. We're not looking for this externally, because what is the material world other than what we're bringing everything into? We're the conduit for God to exist here, because we're bringing that spiritual energy into existence. It's everywhere around us, in particles, in energy, but we're bringing something else, and whatever that thing is, it could be in essence the great work, but we're bringing this down, and we're allowing ourselves to change so that we can, vibrate up a little bit, maybe. But
it reminds me.
I hope that answers.
No, it totally does. It totally does. Thank you for that. That was really good. That was a trip. I like it. It reminds me of. So I live in like right now I live in I live in a very suburban sort of place. And I don't, and like the nearest national park is like 4 hours away. I don't get to go into deep nature like I used to, and that was always really important for me to be able to go out there, because it was like I would get like totally washed out. You know what I mean? And I'd be like clean, where it's like the only thing, when you go far enough in nature and stay there for long enough, then the only thing left is God, because all of the other, like all of the junk, all the temporal stuff is just, it's gone for a time. And the only thing you can be fed by is kind of the divine at that point, you know, or like whatever. Like, I don't know.
Can of beans. No.
Or like squirrel poop or something. But it's good for you to go out that far, and I can't do it right now. And so I was sort of like complaining. I have this one advisor, Spirit, and I was like, and she's really good. And I was complaining to her. I was like, I can't, send me into nature. Like I can't get out of here. Make it so I can get out of here. And she said, why do you want to leave again? And I explained. I was like, well, because I used to like be able to clean myself out this way. And she said, so you're looking for God in trees? And I was like, sure. And I'm looking for God in streams, and I'm looking for God in squirrels, and I'm looking for God in deer. You know, like that's what I was saying to her. And she said, how do you know that you found God in a deer? And I said, because I look in its eyes and it looks in my eyes, and then we both know that God is there. You know, that's kind of how it goes, right? And she was like, well, why don't you do that with people? And that was very challenging to hear.
Yeah. Like there's truth in it, but there's all this other stuff, because they stimulate our humanness. Their humanness brings out our humanness. But if you look at a bird in the eye, then what do we have in common with a bird? Only God, you know, like.
Right. So you can go there, you know, but she was challenging me. She was like, you don't think that God's in that person? Like, and Edward, you know exactly what I'm saying. Of course it's there. It's the baggage that you're bringing into it. That's the issue. You know what I mean?
The other stuff.
And so it's like she was challenging me to own my baggage more. You know what I mean? To stop being like, okay, we need to go stop at the national park to go like dump all my crap. Well, dump it in the first place thoroughly enough that you can look somebody in the eye, and the divine is the only thing that you're seeing. You know? Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Where was I forget where I was going with that.
Well, and it's interesting because it makes me think of the fact that, like, when you're, what is the abyss other than the space between, you know, everything else? It's the space between this brain to that brain to that brain. It's not. It's not the space that we're trying. There's nothing wrong with the abyss existing. There's nothing wrong with space between things. But I mean, we're in the act of Kabbalah. We're trying to go up into, you know, Godhood. We're trying to return to what we came from. But if we can somehow return to that, but then still be here, how you know, and it's not necessarily. I fight with this too all the time, because it's one of those things where it's like, what within me, I've told Edward this, like, so I'm doing the dishes and I'm getting angry because I'm doing the dishes. Like, this is just an explanation, but I'm doing the dishes and all these things are popping up in my head. What? And it's like, they're not popping up in my head to negatively impact me. It's not something trying to stop me. It's something trying to tell me, hey, if this is the act you're doing that's causing the thing in your brain to happen this way, how do you heal that thing while still doing the thing that is causing? So you hate your job, you know, you're doing your job, you hate your job, and it's like, how can you find God in your job? You know, if we're using that explanation, how can you find God in the job you hate? How can you find with the abyss? It's like, that is the space, necessarily not the spaces we hate, but the spaces we are trying to work through so that we can kind of like, the name Lilith, going back to Lilith, means, I'm gonna butcher this. In Hebrew, it's like she who brings you to understand God, or to know God. But it's the same phrase twice, is what I'm reiterating. But it's trying to bring us to understanding of God. Why is she doing it twice? But it makes me think of the idea of she's trying to make us understand God so that we can understand that we are a part of God. And if we're trying to do that in all things.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. She's trying to take you on a full trip, like a return.
Yeah.
Go all the way out and all the way back.
I think that like the exoteric theologians and philosophers, I would say, like they've given themselves an unnecessary barrier in saying God is omnibenevolent, because like unless you change the meaning of Ben to include Mal, you know what I mean? Then surely he's not, or the mal or the bad that exists is a part of some greater picture. And I think that's where the Christian theologians, they veer toward that direction. Like, well, it is good. It just, you can't tell from our perspective because of all the death and World War I. The Holocaust.
It gets all twisty.
And, but, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not putting anything out there as like this is a definitive thing, just more of a thought process. Like, yeah, like the things that we think of God as sacred. Sacred means separate from what? From us. So God is good. We're evil. God is big. We're small. God is eternal. We're mortal. And so God is everything we're not. And so what are you? Well, the only thing I know for sure is I'm not God. I mean, from that, again, exoteric theologian, philosopher perspective. But by one thing I like about the idea of the Shem Feresh ruling the minor arcana cards is, what are these cards? Well, hemorrhoids, like falling in love, herpes, like all these really down to earth kind of things, like the minor arcana, like sorrow, rest from sorrow, strive, and sometimes herpes. A good day that is temporary, and wait till tomorrow, it'll be fucked again. And these are the 72 angels of the Shem Feresh, and you put them all together and you get the divine name of the demiurge, No, I don't know. Who is made in the image of the image of the image of God? So, it's all kind of stacked on top of each other. I've been reading the Nag Hammadi, so now I'm starting to get the picture. Like, so, okay. So the Mother Father sent the 5 emissaries and then tricked Yaldabaoth into giving over the breath of Sophia. So really, Adam wasn't created by Yaldabaoth. He was more of a group project made in the image of Nigorodibus. I get it now.
That makes me think of my girlfriend's in college right now, and it makes me think of the fact, like, she'll do group projects, and thinking back to high school for me, group projects, and people are not. Some people are doing a little bit, some people are doing a lot. It's like, okay, Yaldabaoth, give us the spark, and we'll do all the work.
Yeah, that'd actually be really funny if you just did like Gnosticism as like a college thesis, or maybe like Gnosticism as like it's like a group project. Because you always get those people that like
but do it as a group project. So as a group project, you do a group project where it's Gnosticism as a group project, and then, just film yourself. doing it, and that's the, no, I don't know.
Yeah, and everybody's got
what's
a
the
different
opposite of
idea
meta?
how- yeah. Everybody's got a different idea for how it's supposed to work and how things are happening, but they're like, they can't communicate it fully and they're getting angry with each other. That's Gnosticism.
Oh my God.
You know, Circle of the Dark Mother is a dark Gnostic tradition. So we're using the Gnostic practice in a different way. It's Mark's his own thing he's created. And
okay, now you've mentioned Mark. Should
really
we let the world know who Mark is? And is this Oregon based?
Oh yeah, that no. So Mark H. Williams lives in Ohio.
Judy K from Ohio. She's a Scientologist.
I live in Oregon, but
okay.
It's Circle of the Dark Mother. It's a group that is created for working a dark Gnostic tradition for Lilith. It's online. There's the website. If you just look up Circle of the Dark Mother, Mark H. Williams has a YouTube channel too, and he talks about Lilith. He's been working with Lilith for 25 years. I've been working with her for about a couple years, a little more than a couple years, but it's a tradition that we're working with, like the Kabbalah, but we're working with it in a completely different way. He doesn't work with the dark tree the same way that like some of us that practice in the group do. But
meaning
Mark
the Klipothic spheres,
been a Gnostic,
tunnels of Set, and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Mark has been a Gnostic priest. He's like in his 60s, and he's been doing it since I think he was 18. So he's been going at it for a long time. But he worked with the Christian aspect. He was in a Mary Magdalene group that he started after that too, and he's gone through a long history of doing this practice, and it's interesting that you guys are talking about Gnosticism, because that when I got into Jewish mysticism, I started because I was reading before I ever started practicing magic. I was studying, and I think other traditions like the Temple of Ascending Flame, like stuff like that, they do a dark Gnostic practice too, but they're more draconian. There's a lot of dark Gnostic stuff out there, but it's not. I don't think it's as widely talked about in the same aspect as people who talk about Gnosticism or Kabbalah specifically. I think people go straight towards like deities or like Klipothic work itself or something. But whenever I've read stuff, I never really hear much about the Gnostic side. They talk about, we're practicing Gnosticism, but they don't explain, this.
Yeah, or it's used as like an adjective, like as opposed to like a specific philosophy. Like there's in the Ordo Templi Orientis, when they reestablished themselves in the 70s, they did so as an order within a church. What church? The Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica. So it's the Catholic Gnostics, and so they do the Gnostic Mass. And so sometimes people, that's all they know of Gnosticism, and they're like, oh, so Gnosticism. So you the topless priestess, and it's like, no, like not it's different. So, but then like I used to use it just as like, well, I'm more Gnostic. In other words, I don't think of Yeshua as something completely external to myself and unreachable and in heaven or in the past. I think of Yeshua, like even in exoteric Christianity, they talk about Christ is within you. But, so from a Gnostic perspective, you just take that a little further and say, yeah, mostly, in fact, that's where he is, you know, like it's where you'll find him, you know, like if you're looking for him out there or in history or in the Bible, you're going to be looking for a long time because you should be looking within, and then you can have the gnosis and wake up. And so that's Gnostic. But then if I call myself a Gnostic, then someone's like, so you believe Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is the demiurge? And I'm like, I guess I'm not Gnostic. No, I'm Orthodox, it turns out. I'm an Orthodox mystic Christian, you know, like so.
Yeah, and we don't ever, like, our group kind of isn't really demiurge. Like Mark doesn't really have much to say on the demiurge. He's not really he's just like you know, he's pretty laid back when it comes to the demiurge. Yeah.
I mean, I'm more inclined to interpret like things like thou shalt have no other gods before me as like, well, okay, if we define God as this, and if we define other gods as this, then mathematically it's impossible to have, it's like having a number before the number one. Like you know, 3, 4, 1, 6, 7. No, you're counting wrong. Don't have any other numbers before one. You know, what about 0? Okay, well, 0. You know, like, you know, getting into the Zohar and shit. Okay, you know, fine. The negative veils. You know, okay, you know, that's fine. But
well, the radiance. You know, something has to exist before the radiance. You know. So.
Yeah. And it's just like explaining it to a child, like, okay, don't kill people, don't think that gold statue of a cow is more important than the great oneness that is all of us and is eternal and is the alpha and the omega. Well, yeah, duh, you know, that would be insane, you know, to do that. So
so you mentioned I have questions. You mentioned the circle of the Dark Mother. Is there any lore that you can tell us, like experiences that you've had with the circle, or would you rather not? Would you rather just be like, no, it's there, go check it out?
Do they have a website?
Oh yeah, there's a website.
And it's up on the screen right now.
Yeah, I am willing to talk about. I think it's Curculos Matrim, but there's a dash. But so
is there an age limit? Can 14-year-old Protestant Midwesterners? No, sorry.
I don't know if there's an age limit.
Check out the website.
Yeah, exactly. So when I've had my experiences with Circle of the Dark Mother have been, Curculos Tenebris Matrum Arcanus is the order's name, the temple's name, but it's Circle of the Dark Mother is like the experience, you know, the pre-induced experience. So when I first learned about Mark, I was working with Lilith, and at the shop that the coven I'm a part of, Blue Sword Coven, they own the shop, and they Karen, the lady, the high priestess, she started the shop like a decade ago, and she had ordered a bunch of Lilith books for me, and I was like, I bought them all, of course, and one of them was Embodying Lilith, which is Mark's second book, and it is more of a manual of how to work with the spheres, how to work with the different layers of the trees, and it's insane how he put that much information with also giving history in that book. And I read that book really quick, found out he had a YouTube page, and I was watching YouTube videos when I had more time, and I did that, and then I contacted him because I was like, oh, you can be a part of this group. And I happened to have a Facebook at that time. I don't anymore. And I joined. There's a process. So you go through the seven spheres, and then you go through the supernal as one, and it's a Gnostic practice. So you go through each of these, and I had profound experiences. And I'm an over documenter with magic. I am an over documenter, and I would send these, like, for this one working for this thing, I would send him like 3 to 5 pages of my experience, post ritual during ritual, post ritual experience, with like the planetary hours and like, what incense I was burning, what meditation music was going on. Yeah. And I wrote him up this thing. I would write him up these things, and he was grateful. And when I finished, it took me about a year to do all the, and some of them, I had experiences where I was Gavura. I was very afraid to do Gavura, and it was, severity and restriction. I'm like, I'm afraid to do this. And so it took me 3 months to like do that practice. And so, but it's funny because I did Gavura, and every time I would do these, I was doing them with Lilith in mind. So I would do and anybody can access these, and you just mark up a thing and email it to them, and you can join. And I eventually finished it, and then became a bishop. I was going to be initiated, and he made me a bishop. Instead, he just went from initiation to bishop, and we did it online. We did a ritual. It was really awesome, and I really liked it. So I'm an ordained bishop of Circle of the Dark Mother now. But
nice.
When I was doing Gavura, I was afraid at first, and I'm like, so I'm invoking Lilith. I'm doing these rituals, which invoking Lilith isn't a part of it, but I was doing that myself. So I'm doing that, and then I'm like, restriction severity is going to be really hard, and it was really easy. I'm like, and she's like, look, see, this isn't a big deal, is it? And so I rush on to do mercy. I go to Hesad. I'm gonna do mercy, and it's like maybe a month later, because during this time I'm acclimating. So it's like between these spheres, I'm acclimating to the energies, and connecting deeper into what I'm doing. And I get to, and these are not to say that when you're doing the sphere work, it's not like one and done. Even with the clip off, you're not one and done. You're continually working on these. But and you guys probably know that all too well as Golden Dawners. But when I did mercy, I was like going into it being like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be really awesome. I'm gonna love it. It's going to be simple. It's going to be just be like, I'm going to be showered with love. I'm going to be filled to the brim with all of these amazing feelings, and I'm going to have the greatest visions, because this is right before I go on to the supernal, and I'm doing Hesed, and I see Lilith come to me, and she's like, what do you want? And she's full form. I'm sitting there meditating. I've done the ritual, preparing for it. I've lit the incense. I've invoked the goddess. I'm here for the power. And I see her, and she's like, what do you want? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, you're not going to find what you want, basically. And this is a paraphrase, because it was a long experience. She's like, you're not going to find what you want here. And I'm basically like, I'm looking for, I want to work on my third eye. I really want to open my third eye. I've been trying to for 15 years. I really want to open this ability within myself. And I don't remember, I'd have to read up the write-up again, but I don't remember exactly what she said at that point. And she's like, you're not prepared. She's like, you can be prepared, but you're not prepared. This is all paraphrasing, of course. And I'm like, okay. I don't think, I think that's it. You know, I think that we're done. And then out of nowhere, she gets really angry with me, and she's staring at me, just angry as hell. You know, if you can say for the Queen of Demons, angry as hell. But and her teeth grow these long fangs, and she grabs me, and we're in rapture. She grabs me, and she's holding on to me, and she pierces my forehead with her fang, and she's like all the way in, and I'm not in terror because at this point in my journey, I just let it go. I'm like, you know, what? Let it go, let it flow. So
yeah,
and then she starts pumping all of this fluid into my energy body and into my psychic, and I could feel it like encasing my membrane, and it just felt intense. And she pulls it out when she's done, and she smiles at me, and she's like, okay. And that was my experience with Mercy. And I told Mark, I was like, normally I was only doing these, like I was doing the meditation part for like really, really short periods. But I would do one period for the write-up stuff, and then I would work on it on my own, separate. But I was going to do this one for 7 days. I didn't do the write-up for 7 days, but I did the meditation with her. And I told him, I was like, I did not expect what happened. And I was like, I did not understand. Like, I get, like, and it shook me, you know. It was kind of like one of those things that's like, and it wasn't like terrifying. It wasn't like, it was off-putting in any way. It was just like, I didn't expect that. And Mark, he laughs at me and he goes, you know, mercy without restriction can be a very terrifying thing. And
wow,
I realized like the not having the balance, and he explained it out to me, and I was, you know, not having that ability to balance, but also it can be a very beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be terrifying. Like if you have severity by itself, it could crush itself. It could, you know, as an unbalanced, the tree needs every part of the tree, you know, to sustain itself, as to hold itself. But it's interesting with mercy, because mercy unrestrained, mercy allowing it to flow, allowing it to, you know, it could be a child picks up a pack of gum off the ground, unknowing that he's stealing it, and then all of a sudden gets smited by God. You know, like that's unrestrained mercy. Is, you know, someone who doesn't even know that they're doing wrong is doing wrong, and they're immediately smoten. But it's not. It's also the fact that if we're looking at mercy in an unrestrained form, it is that vast love of, you're going to get what you asked for, and I hope you can like allow yourself to not be afraid of what is coming from that. And it's like all of these things are going to happen in your life, and every time you ask for something, it's like, okay, here it is, you get it. And it's like oh, and then you get that feeling inside of you where it's like that chest feeling. For me, it's like that raising up of energy that kind of feels like, oh shit, like the thing is gonna happen. It's like the thing happens, and then it's like, yeah.
There's that song, "This is what you want, this is what you get. This is what you want, this is what you get."
I really like how you said that Yaburo is actually easy, because I can totally see that. Like restriction in and of itself, well, it's totally out of your hands. And like, you know, when you really get restriction, like it's restricted because you don't have control over your circumstances. So in that sense, you just sit there because there's nothing for you to do. I never really thought of it that way. And then in Chesed, like it's like that can be very difficult, right? Because any restrictions that you had have just been removed now. And you can do literally anything. So you better have a lot of drive because if you don't, you're just going to burst. You're just going to there's nothing to hold you there, and so you're just going to do this and this and this and this, and you're going to wear yourself out, and then you're going to want to keep going. You're not going to sleep. You're going to start drooling into your cornflakes. Like, it can get bad.
Well, I think for me personally, I worry about my manifestations sometimes. It's like, okay, like, yeah, you want all these things, and you put all this energy thinking about it. It's like with the third eye, I've been working with my Ajna chakra since I was like, 19, 20. And I've focused on it so steadily that I've been trying to open it for so long, because I want that experience of having, and I've opened it to the extent where I've seen through my eyelids, all that stuff, but it's never been like the whoop, and then it's open, and I think that when I ask for things, because and it's probably one of those things that's come up since childhood, one of those things Asmodeus is throwing at me to work at, but it's like, when you ask for things and you get it, it's like, oh shit, now I have to have the responsibility of having the thing. And I think that's the part that for me makes that feeling in my chest roll up, where it's like, oh no, I'm getting the thing. And I think that was the lesson she was trying to teach me.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it's okay to ask for the thing, and it's okay to have the thing as well. It's like, oh, that's it's okay to ask for it and have it. Whoa. But you have the responsibility.
Yeah, totally. I totally know what you mean. It's like you work and you work and you work to get to a point, and once you get to that point, you have it now, which means that now you're responsible for it, and it's a whole other world. You know what I mean? And that just by itself can get scary.
I had a friend who was saying that he couldn't. It was actually, I was back when I was teaching, and he was a student. He was trying to test. He wanted to test out of theurgies, but he was saying he can't do the body of light. He had no success with the body of light, which is basically a practice toward astral projection. And basically, what it came down to was, well, okay, I'll just tell him. I'll tell you what I said. I said, do you remember? You've been here in California. He was in Chicago, and you've been to the temple here, right? And I was living at the temple at the time, so I was like sitting there. And he said, yeah, of course. And I said, so you can kind of see it in your mind right now, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, as you're seeing it in your mind right now, what's different about it than when you were here? And he's like, well, there's a Christmas tree. I'm like, where's the Christmas tree? And he's like, well, when you walk in, it's on the left side. And he had never seen the Christmas tree there. There were no pictures. There was, but that's where the Christmas tree was. So I told him, no, you're good. Your astral senses are very strong, but he was expecting a full 3D cinematic virtual, you know what I mean? Like the full, like, leaving of the body. And those things can happen, but that isn't necessarily like, so we restrict, in a sense. We limit ourselves to our expectations, or we limit the thing that we don't know what it is. Well, it sure as hell better look like I expect it to look when it gets here. Otherwise, I'm not going to recognize it. And it's like, well, that's a you problem. That's not, So I don't know. I just felt like throwing that out there.
No, I totally get that. And I think that's part of like the having that responsibility for having the thing, because if you get the thing and you ask for the thing, you get the thing, and then the responsibility, it's not like so it's not like you're just going to throw it away, like, oh, that's not what I wanted. That's not that. Even though it's what you asked for, it's what you wanted. You know, and that's the gratitude aspect. I practice gratitude as much as possible, and it's like, you know, if I ask for, you know, $50 and I get $50, you know, if I get 45, I'm still grateful that I got 45. You know, it's just it's that dependence on like, and also if you get it in different ways. So, you know, it doesn't, whatever you ask for, you know, it's, and especially when you're asking beings that are much older than I will ever be, you know, and it's like you're asking people to help you with, and in the town I live in, there's a lot of signs that say people helping people. And when I look at deities, and all these things, I think of Lilith as a bodhisattva. I think of her as like this being, and I think of a lot of deities that way. And it's like, they're these beings that are here to help people. They're here to help us raise up, because if that's part of their responsibility, they asked for something, they got it, and they worked hard to get it, you know, like Joe was saying. And it's like, it allows them to bring us up, because it's only going to benefit them if we all rise up as well. And it doesn't matter who it is. It's a blanket, you know. I was an existentialist for quite a few years, and they talk about the blanket and everything. A cheeseburger, you know, there's a movie that does it really funny. A cheeseburger, an orgasm, a car crash, you know, whatever it is, they're all the same thing on the blanket. And I think of that in a way with the consciousness of these deities, these beings, these archangels, these demons, whatever you want to call them. These people are here. It's like a blanket around the earth, you know, and they're coming to help us extract something from ourselves so that we can to remember we are God, and remember God itself, Godhood, so we can rise up and either fully go into awareness of being, or allow ourselves to be bodhisattvas and try to, you know, instead of rising up into Buddhahood, we're allowing others. You know, I had an experience with Lucifer where he was giving me this it was part of a thing that I did, and in regards to Temple of Ascending Flame, I'm not affiliated, but I was doing a working through them, and he goes, what, you know, you have to choose a path to get to his throne. Well, instead of choosing a path, I was like, what if there was a path that not only I took, but anyone could take? And it was interesting because instead of flying there in Draconian form and stuff, instead of flying there, it's all in space, and there's this giant throne of gold, and I like teleported. I didn't fly. I just all of a sudden was here, but there was these sparkling lights that were just surrounding all of this area, and there were tunnels. And there were all these tunnels that people could follow. And these weren't mine. These were everybody else's that they'd taken to get there. And it's the idea that just because we necessarily want the thing, or want to get the thing, or are willing to work hard enough, grind, whatever it is, to get there, sometimes it takes a mental attitude that has nothing to do with any of that stuff whatsoever. The thing that we're working on, the thing we're doing, what we want to get, how we're willing to get it. Sometimes it takes that mentality that has nothing to do with any of that stuff to get there, and sometimes that will allow us to bring others with us. And I thought that was, and I was very right-hand path when I was doing that working. It was like 3 years ago. And so my mentality wasn't like, oh, I want the power, I want the stuff, and I'm still not that way. I'm all about spiritual enlightenment, spiritual growth. But I find it funny because that was one of the things he asked me. He's like, what do you want? And he's like, and he goes, most people ask for power, it just blatantly, most people ask for power when they get here. And it's like, yeah, I don't want that. That's not what I'm looking for. I want something else. And if I wanted power, I'd want my own power,
Yeah. There was a friend of mine, a colleague, you might say, who posted on online that he said that people who claim to be left-hand path, in his experience, I'm not mocking, that people who claim to be left-hand path seem to be the same people who steal and rape, etc. Could you help me refute that? Because I'm adverse to conflict. I just block people and turn off my phone or throw my computer across the room. Like, I don't want to engage online and get involved in a back and forth with a pile-on comment thread of that sort. So I've learned years ago to just keep going. Just don't take the bait. But then I like to an hour into one of these long form videos, whether it be Chicken Philosophy or Esoterinerd, to have the response to it, so it'll be burned through the. So can we, first of all, people who claim to be right-hand path, you mean like Christians? You mean like, like people who are like, I am right and good and holy and you're not? That's what I think of generally, right? That's the exoteric right-hand pather. And they're some of the most evil motherfuckers who do all the raping, all the killing, and all the stealing, the systemic, creation of the systems of theft. And so where people who are left-hand path, I don't, honestly, you're probably the only person I know. There's like maybe 2 or 3 people I've met who say I'm part left-hand path. I think Kay from Brotherhood of the Black Sun, Kuho Yu. I think you've probably seen the South African group that I went and visited before I came to Nepal, are left-hand, right-hand path. Like both hands, nothing left off the table. And the idea of there being 2 hands and having to choose one or the other, or to state that you're both, it's like, well, obviously we're all mixed, right? So what does it even mean to be right-hand path as opposed to left-hand path? And how would you responds to somebody who says, well, I've noticed that people, why would you be left-hand path? The left-hand path just means raping and killing, and how I would never associate the people who call themselves left-hand path.
Well,
anyway.
If you want me to explain, so I'm gonna say it in a very left-hand path way.
Okay.
Just to make people upset. No. So I think the reason why there's left-hand path and right-hand path in any way is because of fear. Everybody is stuck in their, you could say it as klipa, you could say they're stuck in some sphere, you could say they're stuck in some way to something that is causing them to fear the other thing or doing the thing. Like when I was right-hand path, I had, because I was Christian for years before I was atheist, and then I became a witch. So it's like, and I became I became a spiritualist, and then I became a witch. So it's like, how many times did I have to break these chains of barriers that were holding me back? And I think what left-hand path people are trying to do is they're trying to break the confines of, like, so if we're looking at the adversaries, so to speak, everything is adversarial. It's not just left-hand path. Anyone, Satan is the name in...
prosecuting attorney. Yeah.
Prosecuting attorney, yeah. So it's like, if you're looking at these things and you're like, oh, these are just their own, these are ego manifestations of us trying to break the holds of the ego manifesting in ourselves and out in the world. So if I'm looking at left-hand path, right-hand path, I'd say both anyone who is just left-hand path is afraid. Anyone who is just right-hand path is afraid. Anyone who is willing to incorporate all the work of, and that's not to say if you love working with demons that you're afraid of things. If you love working with angels, you're afraid of things. It just means that people who are so stuck on a ideology of it's only this way or this way, and if you do this, like people who say
right.
demons are all down bad kind of people that just want to harm people. It's like, no, they're not. They're not that way. And the problem a lot of people have in realizing that when you're working with an archangel or a demon, if we want to boil it down to left and right hand path as archangels and demons, which is not true, it's all black magic. If you're summoning an archangel or a demon, you're practicing black magic, because black magic is summoning something. So if you look at old necromancy texts, like elucidations, you're doing black magic.
Right. A lot of it is in definitions, because I know that those people would say, no, black magic is evil magic, and evil is taking away life from another being without blah, 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 blah. And so it's just, well, it's a matter of like, well, obviously, if I'm defining it this way and you're defining it that way, then it would be useless for us to even use that phrase. Like we should use other different phrases. Otherwise, we're having two different conversations. And then it's a matter of which dictionary is the correct one, you know.
Well, and it's like which one's the adversary in that experience, because it's like, you know, they're both adversaries to each other. So the right hand path is like, I'm not the adversary, I'm the one of good, and it's like, no, you're the left hand path person's like, no, you're the adversary, which is them being the adversary. So it's not it's not like we're I think the idea of left and right hand path was created in a means to kind of, for, you know, split the gap, you know. But if you look at people who practice left hand path magic specifically in that context, I don't think it's like, I think that a lot of times they will try to put things forth in a way that will cause people to have a negative reaction to it for the sake of it possibly jarring them into a gnosis. I could be wrong, because I've been an edgelord in my life. I understand what it's like.
Right. I was just thinking of trolling or something.
But it's not like
the trolling guru.
Yeah, exactly. The trolling guru. If you have Jake Stratton Kent was complete, and his work is great, but he was completely against working with angels. He didn't see a reason for it. And there's plenty of other people who work with angels who would never work with demons. And it's like, the problem is if you invoke that being, they're going to show you something about yourself. So what are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of the being? Or are you afraid of what they're going to show you about yourself, whether they're an angel or a demon, that is in there? So if it's a demon and they're a part of a klipa, then they're showing you something in that klipa that's you. You're in there. You're right in there. You're that dot in the circle. And it's like, they're showing you yourself. They're not showing you themselves. They're showing you how you can, that's the back to the giving and receiving. Here, you ask for the thing. Here's the thing. Are you going to throw it out because you're afraid of what you're seeing of yourself, of your ego, of your internal self? So if we're going, there's a lot of bad people on any of the spectrum, but I think there's a lot of good people on both sides of the spectrum. They're just totally, in a way, afraid of what they're going to see when they look too deep. And that's fine. You got many lifetimes to do this stuff. But as a tarot reader that I like her stuff, Witch and Scythe, she's said multiple times that you never know when you're you never know how this time right now where you're in this moment with witchcraft, with whatever it is, and you're able to do the work in this time. You never know when you're going to get that chance again. If you see the thing and you don't work on it, you'll have other lifetimes to work on it, but you might not ever have a more pinnacle moment than now to do it. So I find that I find that to be very true. And
Yeah.
I've kind of adopted that.
I think that if I'm not mistaken, the whole the phrase right hand path and left hand path comes from Tantra. And
I think that's right.
Sort of the Westerner, coming and learning about Tantra and hearing about this. So the interesting thing is, depending on who you talk to and where you go, here in India, if you say Tantra, people tend to think of left-hand path Tantra. And that comes in the form of the Agori. So eating poop and human flesh and living in the cemetery and they're not so into gay sex, but these are all things that are considered left-hand path in Tantra, which is a 1,600-year-old evolution on the traditions of what we generally term Hinduism. But it also, worked its way into Mahayana Buddhism and flowered in the form of Vajrayana Buddhism. And so a lot of the origin stories of Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism specifically involve Padmasambhava doing things that sound a lot like left-hand path Tantra, living in the cemeteries and killing and eating people and wearing their skin, stuff like that. And it's like, so, from I guess a right-hand path perspective, like here or there, there's people here who hear that and are horrified and are like, wait, so he's someone that people look up to? He's like, yeah, Om Home Vajra Pema City Home, like praying to the guy who killed and ate people and wore their skin when he was younger, it was a phase, And but you don't hear about that phase of Jesus's life, so people who are used to one terminology. So but then I think wasn't it just like 100 years ago, or maybe 120, 130 years ago, that they started applying right-hand path and left-hand path to things that are generally termed Western, and so there's a difference in how it got applied to those things as opposed to how it is traditionally applied in Tantra. I think. I don't know.
That makes sense. And I was thinking of like the Westerner way. And I find that in the practice of necessarily like Hindu tradition, which I don't practice that, but I've done Buddhist meditation for a very long time, where I was very dead set on when I was working with the chakras, when I was working with, and I still work with them, but when I was trying to open up my energy body. And I find it interesting that you could even like say that anything split off from, like, I've never looked at those two things as like left hand or right hand path. So it's interesting to hear. I didn't know about it in that context. So it's interesting to hear that because I know the Agori from later study, but it's like, it's interesting to think that like, because they're more of like the necromancers, they're like they work with the dead, and they work with they work with ancestral line, and
cursing is just a casual thing you do on a Wednesday, and getting cursed by your master is just like, oh, don't piss off your master, like next time you're at the charnel grounds, give him a lift or something. Maybe he'll lift the curse. I don't know.
They all gather around for the weekly cursings.
Yeah.
throw the
not
bodies
making
in the
not
fire
not
and
intending
hold
to
the
be
human
making
souls.
fun of someone else's culture, but I mean, we
No,
all,
no.
Yeah.
I think
little
it's amazing
teasing,
that-
little ribbing here and there.
Yeah.
So it's just a different perspective. It sounds funny to an American ear, Protestant or Catholic or based upbringing to consider that would be normal in a family, or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean that is a thing in the left-hand path in Western society too, where people will start cursing each other because of what, like, to teach them a lesson, or what have you, teach them a lesson. It's like, what lesson are they learning in essence?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And what lesson can you provide outside of life? You know what I mean? Like, there's not really a lot that I can do to people that they're not going to do to themselves. And there's not really a lot that I can do to people that, like, their mother-in-law, for example, isn't going to do to them. I mean, not that I have.
If you're watching,
my mother. She would never do anything like that.
Yeah.
But my point is, I guess my only point is like I don't engage in cursing because I don't have to.
Yeah, and the less you do it, the easier it is to stay out of it, I guess.
Right. Yeah. You're confident. Yeah. One thing that just popped into my head, I don't know if it's even useful, but like the idea, like when someone claims to be right-hand path by that name or by whatever name, I mean, I assume, so if we're defining our terms, right-hand path means good only, right? Light side of the force, right? Like, is that right-hand path? So anybody who claims to be that is, to one degree or another, a hypocrite, because they're going to gloss over or reframe, whether to themselves or to others or both. They're going to lie about their own evil, about their own darkness, in order to act more of the light. And that's that comes up in Golden Dawn orders. Don't ask me how I know that, but or churches or anything where everything's all about welcome. Oh, whether it be, and I think here in India, in Hinduism as well, you would find that where something's supposed to be all light and good, but what about this weird edge to it? Like there's something, where there's almost like a when someone's like, yeah, oh, we're left-hand path. Yeah. Then it's like, well, okay, what can you be a hypocrite about then? Well, I gave to charity yesterday. I helped an old lady cross the street, and it's like, see, you're
not really left-hand path,
you hypocrite.
Well,
yeah, you would have kicked her down and spat on her. No, I don't know, but like these are silly cartoonish images. But it reminds me a little bit of how some people say that they just call you a slur and say, yeah, well, I'm a racist. Where in the North, everybody's smiling and they're, oh, okay. But then somehow you find out that your loan wasn't approved, and you're like, how did that happen? And it's like, well, they're secretly racist, like they smile at you, but then behind the scenes they make sure that you don't get to move in next to them, So I don't know.
It's interesting because the power of justification is not to name any types of things, but the movement of that ended in World War II. If because this is going on YouTube, I don't want to say the word.
They couldn't even say Nazi. They would say Nazis. We want Nazis.
But when you look at those, when you look at that,
we can bleep it out. Yeah, it's okay.
The power of justification. The power of justification is it could, any person who thinks they are right and just can do the most horrific things.
Yeah,
And that's not,
yeah.
I think that's part of the whole feeling of not necessarily I'm trying to think of how to put it, because it's like, if you're looking at people who think they're like always in the right, like
Yeah.
the guy who ended the Templars back then, he
Right.
didn't think he was in the right, but what the Templars believed that they were in the, the just workings of God, but that guy who didn't get put into the Templars, who then makes it so they all get tortured and destroyed, But if you're looking at that, like, horrific things happen, but it's like that person justified probably to themselves in many ways, and just is with internal. So we can justify anything to ourselves, and I think that when we're looking at left or right hand path, in that aspect, if we're narrowing our minds so much to
to fit things that are thousands of years old into a misunderstood and appropriated concept that only entered into the English vernacular 100 years ago. Yeah, we'll do that as if it were a thing that ought to be done, because everybody's doing it, like, so.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Anyway, but yeah, I had heard that the French king owed money to the Templars and then tried to tax his people, and the Templars, who were among those being taxed, were like, "Hey, excuse me, sir, you owe us money. We're not giving you money, silly." And so then suddenly the French king's cousin became the Pope, and then declared them all Satan worshippers, and then there was Black Friday. That's the version I heard. I don't know. I mean, it's all kind of like with asterisks on Wikipedia and whatnot, like, unconfirmed. I don't know. Some say this and that.
I had one more question.
Yeah.
HeYamin, you talked about it's come up a few times now. You talked about the Draconian tradition. For folk like Edward and I, we are ill-informed of Draconian things. Can you talk a little bit
That's
about
true.
that? So so Draconian tradition is just that you're working with, and that also has its own sect of left hand path and right hand path, in the essence of people who work with dragons and people who work with a draconian current itself. Even though people who work with dragons in the form of not saying draconian, because draconian has become this evil term where everything is, that's a draconian system, or what have you. I don't find that to be the aspect that kind of I don't align with things that people are, how do I put it? People are using as a way to racially profile, if I could say it that way, because I know that a lot of people, there's a lot of speciesism. Like, I'm a big buff on alien stuff, so I love alien stuff. But
nice.
If, like, humans think, reptilian bad, that kind of mentality. But for me, draconian magic is you're working with like aspects of draconian lineage, so to speak. Like, if you're working with the Klippa, you're working with draconian aspects. So you're working with like Lucifer as a draconian god, the golden dragon. And you're working with, and that's how I work with him, even though I work with him in the archangel form too. It's my practice is all over the place. So, but the work the magic itself is pretty simple. It's mostly a Gnostic practice, and it was my first dark Gnostic practice because I followed a lot of the Temple of Ascending Flame kind of Asnith Mason kind of group think of how they practice magic. Of you're working with a portal, you're calling a being in, and you're invoking, and then you're working with Gnosis, and a lot of like putting a little bit of blood on a sigil or a portal, and you're opening it. And that's actually one of the ways I learned how to open portals very successfully, was through that group's magical working. So what I'm doing in Draconian magic, I mean, my focus, because I also work with a liking group, I work with a werewolf group. So my focus is shape-shifting and working on the ability to shapeshift. I've actually done meditations where I've astral and mental shifted, but my goal is if I could is to physically shapeshift. But that's neither here nor there. It's just that's my focus when I'm doing Draconian magic, when I'm doing Draconian work. I'm trying to elevate my physical body into another form. But it's not like to say because I know a lot of people would think that shapeshifting is bad, but well, if you look at, and that's just my own ego, where I've heard this many times and I'm just like cycling it through. But there's angelic Draconians as well. So if people want to be, speciesist, that is their thing. But it's not like, for me, my focus is I work with Lilith and Lucifer. I work with elder dragons. I'm a part of a Draconian current. That's why I didn't get into the Temple of Ascending Flame, because when I was doing their rituals, I connected with a different Draconian current than theirs, and so they were like, "Hey, you're a good magician, but you didn't connect to the right current." And I'm like, damn it. I just continued the work from there, but I solo practitioner. So I created my own stuff to summon with, and I created my own, I create my own sigils, and I use some of their work still. I have a bunch of their books, and I really like it. And it's, Mark doesn't teach that side of things. So being able to connect those two together just feels so good to me, because I'm like, I'm like incorporating all these different elements. And I think that's the point of the magician, is to have the tools, because if you have all these different elements to put into your work, you're going to feel more at home, and everybody's is different, from the other, every practice, just like every gnosis is not going to be the same for people. Could be sitting in the same spot, meditating on the same mantra, meditating on the same mandala with the same the same beads and everything, and they're going to have a different gnosis. So, and you can't force it.
Reminds me of the Zen masters with the Satori, that there'll be two Zen masters walking, and then one of them hits the other one on the back of the head, and he has his Satori, or whatever it is, or shouts at him, or he says, "You see those reeds in the pond?" And he says, "Yes. What about them?" "That one's very tall. That one's very short." And he has his Satori, and that wouldn't have worked for me. That wouldn't have been my Satori, I was thinking, just to backtrack a little bit, like approaching it from, maybe a Virgo kind of, because I've been reading, Carl Jung, and but then thinking of it as a biological. Now, sorry, I'm skipping around a little, but when I was like 6-7 years old, sorry, didn't mean to do the 6-7 thing. That was unintentional. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, I used to get up early and look at the encyclopedia, World Book Encyclopedia, specifically the pictures of, and I would look up brain, snake, cat, and human, and then I would look up brain, and I was kind of obsessed with understanding, like when I look at the eyes of a cat, it's different from when I look at the eyes of a snake. And when I look at the eyes of a cat, it's a lot like looking at the eyes of a human. And so what is it about looking at the eyes of a snake? You know what I mean? And so then looking at these pictures of the brains, and I know people use the term lizard brain, and then other people say that term it's not accurate, but I get what they're saying. Like sometimes a thing can be a metaphor without being an actual scientific, like left brain, right brain. Okay. It doesn't exactly mean left brain, right brain in the way that like when someone said, all the basic stuff to be an animal. I mean, beyond like not an insect, but like all the basic stuff to be the foundations of being a mammal are present in a reptile. And the thing that's not present in a reptile is everything else that makes you a mammal. I mean, just looking at the brain. So they have amygdalas. They have they have all the things that keep, obviously the automatic things, breathing and heartbeat, and but then they just don't have the complex emotions or the deep thoughts that a cat does, let alone that a human does, and so I think that when people are scared of or have whatever primal response to looking into the eyes of a snake that they have, it says a lot about them, like getting into the Jungian thing, like what are you projecting onto the snake? So what is the author of, or what is the reader of the book of Genesis projecting onto the serpent as they read about that character versus the serpent in Kundalini versus the serpent in here? And why is it a serpent? Is it just because it's a shape? Is it because it's phallic, or is it because it's a reptile? Is it because it looks back at you, but in a way that makes you uncomfortable, and what is that discomfort? And so that those things all came to mind as you were describing Draconian and dragons and like people talk about lizard people and and them being a bad thing.
I feel like you sort of hit on the theme of this episode of when you're, regardless of what it is that you're working with, how you approach it, your perception of it, like totally colors what that thing becomes. Like at first we were talking about, remember we were talking about the Psalms and how it depended, your perception of the thing determined how that thing worked in your life, and we were talking about like the Draconian current and it sounds like it's a lot the same way, and actually just the quote left hand versus right hand path generally. It's not a question of what it objectively is. It's a question of who you are subjectively and what, and the perception that you're bringing to it.
Well, and also to speak on that, it's what you both said. I look at it as I'm going as primordial as possible. I'm going as far back in my DNA as possible. I'm trying to connect with that part of myself, because we have all of these, like the DNA of our bodies has so much of these animals on this planet, and so much more that we don't even understand. So if I can go back and work through my DNA, not just because I think I'm doing ancestral healing and doing all this stuff in myself through my work, because it's allowing me to work through stuff my ancestors went through in my lineage, and stuff that my meditation sessions, I'm not just working on, that's why I think it's so funny, because I doing practical magic is great just to learn the basics too, and to say you need something, you try to get it through magic and it works, okay, good. But the meaning of magic is, for me, that I am trying to change myself so dramatically that I do not have the same experiences again. And I mean that in the best way possible, because, life isn't always easy. And all of that stuff that was hard to do, I don't want to have to do that in my next life, And And I find that as like, and they shaped the method in which I got to where I am now. So it's like it allowed me to get here, but how can I make it so the next time that this rolls around on the wheel of the tarot Torah, how do I allow myself to not have the same cycles? How can I change myself so that I don't make the same mistakes, so I don't do the same things, so I don't react the same ways that cause the experiences, not just in this life, but in the next? What all that I can take with me, you know, if I could do a magical spell that got me $200 or $300 million and it worked, it's like, okay, but what I'm taking with me is the ability to do the magic, not the money itself. So if I focus on the magic in myself, what can I do? Like, yes, I want to achieve a lot of great things, as every magician wants to. And every magician wants that gnosis, that voice, that vision, or the vision of the madness, someone could say. You know, someone wants that experience, but it's like the high only lasts so long in this life. What we're taking with us is our ability to constantly be able to train the self and like continually carry that energy forward. And if we're making a lot of bad energy in our lives, we're going to take that forward too. And so I'm just trying to root that out.
Yeah.
And it's that primordial sense of, because I work with Lilith as one of the forms of her I work with is the first woman, but she's like, when she first came to me, she was wearing skins, and she had like this wolf belt on, and she had like a headdress on, and she was this woman like that couldn't really speak but could show you everything. Like she touched my forehead, and she wiped stuff on me and like salves, and we danced, and we had this, you know, this experience of man and woman in the beginning of time, where we're in a cave and we're experiencing, there's, you know, she's a hunter, she's a huntress, she's the first woman, but she's that way in a primal sense, you know. And I think of that in my magic, of not just in my magic, because magic is self-discovery of the spirit. So, and then we're discovering what we are capable of inside ourselves, you know, that connection to God. But it's not just going up or coming down. We're discovering that it's always there and it's always going to be there. So I'm trying to discover, you know, with Draconian work, that primordial self that's always there. It's there right now. It's right here in me, you know. I can touch it, but I don't know. So I'm trying to explore and be that explorer, you know.
It seems like that's a common thread, a common theme in all the different currents that you touch. Like, how do you find a new one? So I mean, you've talked about like the Draconian tradition now. You've talked about Lilith. You've hit on a lot of different subjects. How have you come upon all of these different things to bring in and to integrate?
I mean, honestly, just for one, study is having mystical experiences. Like, you know, I saw Lilith and Lucifer first in a dream, and I got a reading from the high priest in the coven right afterwards, and I'm like, hey, I had this happen, and he's like, yeah, they've been here this whole time, and you know, they've been here before this life, and they'll be here after this life. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start working with them. And at that point in my life, I was able to let go of those boundaries that I might have held on myself and just immediately get into the work and the magic of it. But like how I discover these things, I mean, I try to live with no limit to what I'm willing to learn, like, yes, I feel uncomfortable when there's some things in some books that I've read and I'm just like, oh, that's not my jazz. I'm not gonna desecrate a corpse or something,
No, yeah,
Like,
yeah, I get it. I get it.
But it's also the fact that, like, if I'm afraid to work with, and especially after having that Spear of Mercy experience, the Chesed experience, if I'm afraid to do something, I need to lean into it. Brene Brown, she's a amazing talker, and she says, lean into discomfort. Lean into discomfort. And it's like, oh, like, I've applied that before, in my mental health, in my work with my mental health. So it's like, why can't I apply that to my spiritual health? Like, why can't I apply that to, I need to study, I need to grow, and practice has become easy for me. So if I find something that I want to do, I just get into the practice. It's just like you go on a date. You go on a date with someone that you didn't, it wasn't that great. You don't have to go on a date with them again. So.
No, that's a great analogy.
You don't have to lean into the discomfort. Like, I should marry this person I hate. No, but that kind of thinking was what part of what motivated me to read Martin Luther on chicken philosophy and read that whole thick book was leaning into the discomfort. And that actually kind of started with the Arbitel. You remember Freder, 130, episode 130. In preparation for episode 130, I wanted to read the Arbitel, but because my attention span is as it is, that's why I do Chicken Philosophy and Buddhist Books podcast, is so that I will read these books. Otherwise, it's like a way I've made it into a little dance where it's like, no, I'm performing. See, I'm, like doing it. It's a game, it's a show, it's a game show. Not a book. That'd be boring. And so I did that with. So I read the Arbitel on chicken philosophy, and So there I was. Not only was I on a YouTube channel talking about the Lord and his angels and all these things that are like, I don't mind thinking about them or talking in private about them, but talking openly on YouTube. But not only that, I was walking around a shopping mall talking, like reading it aloud, and the Lord will bring unto you that which you, and so that made me uncomfortable. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to read Teilhard de Chardin. First I was like, I'm going to read Meccan Revelations. And I started bringing in more theology, because Carl Jung will make reference to theology, or he'll have some Christianity like lingering in the background, but then he'll have this and he'll have that. And he went through his process, and it's kind of fascinating. It's fascinating to go through Carl Jung's process with him, because I've always seen his fingerprint in, anywhere I look in present day Western culture, if that's a thing. But what am I talking about? Yeah, no. So leaning into the discomfort. I like leaning into the discomfort, and I try not to do it all the time, but definitely, if something makes me uncomfortable, then I look at it and go, why does that make me uncomfortable? And like, is this a case where I should lean into that and do the thing that feels uncomfortable to do? And yeah, that's an interesting thing. And so, in a sense, like being raised Christian and having an inclination to do the thing that feels uncomfortable is like free advertising for Luciferian and Lilith and all of these things that would be considered taboo, like the most taboo possible thing,
Things that as a child I was frightened of and like running away from.
Yeah.
Like Lucifage, Raphael, his name means one who flees from the light. And it's funny because a lot of people have the opposite. They flee from the darkness. They flee from the aspects of themselves that are darker, and not to say like evil aspects of yourself. I mean like the aspects of death and regrowth and rebirth and allowing ourselves to be, in the blood again, in the enmeshed in the womb, and then live to die, live to death, not live to die, but live to, and then experience because even after you're dead, death is a terrible experience, for most people, but after you're dead, you get to live on again. So, and that's even, you're on the other side experiencing whatever you're experiencing. So no one's like, yes, there's like the idea of ghosts and poltergeists of people locked in fear, but most people's experience isn't that. So
it's like a graduation ceremony. You have to put on this uncomfortable rayon, thing, and then get under these lights, and your mom's filming it, and then you have to go up and shake hands with the fucking headmaster, that hypocritical bastard. And that's like, but then after that, then life goes on, so that's like death in a way.
Yeah, it's like
graduation ceremony.
It's like Ram Dass said, it's just like taking off a tight shoe.
Nice. So mercy without restriction, right? That's the title of this episode, and it's also the title of a song. You what were you playing? What's the name of that drum?
It's a hand pan drum. Yeah. It's a hand pan drum. I don't know where they originate, but I've wanted one for a long time, and I finally got myself one, and I play it all the time. So I've been making a few videos. I've been making a few videos of me playing it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Trying to make meditations and stuff.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one that you called Mercy Without Restriction, and I think we've covered, like you were saying, that we'd talk about that in this episode.
That's the story I told earlier about the experience with Lilith. But the meaning of the song, that song with the title, is not just the terrifying aspect of mercy. It's also, like I touched on, it's the mix between, even though it's not the balance of restriction and mercy. It's the balance of mercy unrestrained and mercy unrestrained in a way that is, what you need and what you want and what you're willing to receive and hold on to.
Yeah. Very interesting. So you've written some books. You've got a website. We haven't even talked about any of that stuff.
Oh, I didn't realize. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually.
We can plug some things.
I've actually got. I don't know if it's going to let me show it. No, it's not going to do it. Not your cult's energy.
There it is.
Oh, okay. Not your cult's energy
word. My cults.
And,
not yours, mine. Yeah.
That's on Amazon. I'm actually working on a project for that right now that's going to be live in hopefully a month, but it's the process has been kind of intense. So, but yeah, so that book is on there, and my website is just HeYamin but yeah, no, I'm working on some other books too. So, but it's on the agenda I'm working on, and I'm also working on a Lilith, a beginner's Lilith. It's not like a manual. It's literally just rituals to do, but not like the rituals which I do at the shop with a group of people. That I'm running rituals monthly for Lilith as like a group that people can pay and come. It's like $10 or $12 a month by Candlelight and Conjure, and I just do a different ritual. We just did one last night that ended up taking like 2.5 hours when it was only supposed to take an hour and a half, and it was great. We had 5 altars. Nice. 5 altars, one for each of the elements, and then one for the center of it's the spirit, which was it was Lilith, but it's the spirit altar in the center. And that went great. It was amazing. But I'm working on a document that's going to be on my Etsy. That's just a beginner's. If you want to start working with Lilith, here's some rituals to do for 7 days or 30 days. And it's going to be very detailed and stuff. But I'm working on that because I'm going through the rituals myself before I release, I thought that would, because there's people who might write up that kind of stuff and not go through the process.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And it like, it makes it so much more valuable when you've gone through it and when you have firsthand experience of everything, and then after, like, when you've published and it's out in the world, interesting things happen. Like it'll sometimes, like, things that you do, just like you put it out into the world and then you just forget about it for a time, but then it comes back again. It always does. And when it does, it comes back like in ways that you're not expecting. So if you have firsthand experience with it, then you can be like, oh, right, this thing, I know how to address that, versus like, well, I never actually tried it. So
I had an example of where the S2 ritual, I have a video that I put up where I'm performing it. And then the what I call the 7 Typhurets ritual, which was actually the origin of the S2 ritual. So the 7 Typhurets ritual takes place in the vault of the Adepti, but I do it in the VH Frater BT channel, but I do it in a way where I'm visualizing the vault of the Adepti. But then the S2 ritual is like a hold your hand, hold a neophyte's hand and guide them through a process very similar to the 7 Typhurets ritual. But in one of them, I start with Venus and go around clockwise in the vault. And in the other one, I start with Saturn and go down the path of the flaming sword. And so then someone told me that for the past however many years, every full moon he does the S2, and every new moon he does 7 Typhurets, or reverse that. And so, one side of the month he's starting with Venus, the other side of the month he's starting with Saturn. And I was like, oh no, like, because the whole point of both the 7 Typhurets and the S2 is for all 7 planets to be in perfect harmony and balance, and for not one of them to be emphasized more than another. And here it is bouncing back and forth between desire, restriction, or Venus and Saturn, and so then I suggested, I kind of like panicked in my own slow kind of panic, and suggested that whatever sign the moon is in when it's new or full, that month should be the planet that is given a special mention or honor.
Well, that's a cool idea.
Rather than just always Venus or Saturn or Venus or Saturn. Yeah. Like if you're doing it twice a month, then it ends up working out to a harmony, except Sun and Moon get a little bit underrepresented because they only each rule 1 planet, where the other 5 ancient planets each rule 2 planets, or each rule 2 signs, I should say.
I do want to mention, I have a, on my Etsy and on my website, it's for sale. It's called the ALO ritual, Ascendat Lux Obscurata. And I'm saying this because it's my version of the LVX. So I do this, I do the LVX and then I do the ALO, because you're bringing the light, you're bringing the darkened light up, and you're ascending. And it's Ascendat Lux Obscurata means ascending below the light. So you're calling down the LVX, and then you're ascending up into it with the ALO. So I have a document that I made, and it's on Etsy. It's on my website too. If you use, I think the code Lilith still works. If you use Lilith, I think it's like half off. I've had that code on there for a long time, but I just never.
All caps, all lowercase.
I think all caps. Yeah, I'm sure it's all caps. Okay. But that ritual, because I did Golden Dawn, my own study stuff for a long time, and I started getting these things that Lilith wanted me to work on, and I created that in the middle of the night one night. I was reading after banishing. I was reading, and that just popped into my head, and I was meditating, trying to go to sleep, and it just kept coming in, and I was like, okay, I'm going to write it down. And then I created it, and it's I really like that ritual. I use it a lot. So if anybody was interested in checking it out, I thought I'd share that because it's pretty cool.
Nice.
I am super grateful to talk to you
this
guys.
was fun. Yeah,
This was fun. Yeah, I was really glad to meet you. Hey,
you know.
hey, I mean, I really enjoyed hearing about your perspective and hearing about how you're working with all these different currents to open up. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I'm super.
It's a little
super
like
grateful.
subtly cathartic for me because I was the right hand path guy on the Golden Dawn public forums in 2001, 2002, telling people who talk about Lilith as anything other than something you should avoid, as that they didn't know what they were talking about, and so this is me kind of going, let's close my mouth and see what they, maybe if I had let them talk, what they might have said when I was just blocking people and kicking them out of my my Yahoo groups,
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys were willing to listen to,
of course,
that stuff because I know a lot of people shy away from hearing out people who are even slightly on a different spectrum, and I know you guys are a lot more open-minded. So, but I was just super glad that you guys were willing to talk about that.
Yeah, it's a traditional Golden Dawners telling the Thelemites, Zadi is the star, damn it. Why did you switch them? I can't handle this, Well, I worship Lilith.
Well, and I find it funny because I used to be in a way where I would be like, my meditation group when I was 18, my friend, he was working with the lesser key when we were, and I was like, oh no, you shouldn't do that. And we're all meditating, and it's like now to see where I'm at, I'm like, oh yeah, no, you should have done it. I should have done it too. So
thinking back on that time, it was thinking back to the time when the Lemegeton was something that you shouldn't be doing. It was so. It's comforting, isn't it? It's comforting in a way because it's like the sun is in the sky, God is in his heaven, everything is as it should be, and the Lemegeton is not to be touched. You know what I mean? And everything's so clean that way. But it's but you're never going to get anywhere that way. As long as, like Edward said before, as long as you stay comfortable, you're going to be comfortable, and you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, plant has to endure all the elements outside if it's growing outside to grow, and that's where it's going to flourish the most.
Yeah. And if somebody's, spiritual perspective or language or metaphor is so fragile that they can't handle, considering another system of metaphors or perspectives, then maybe it's not worth having. If you need to be so isolated and insulated that you can't even consider hearing what the other person has to say, then what does that say about you and your church? What
does that say about you and your church?
All right. Well, I'm gonna
podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and So you mentioned auditing. I don't know how far back you've gone into Esoterinerd archives, but we used to have a segment at the beginning called Tech Support, where I would read from the technical dictionary of Dianetics and Scientology. So today I'll be opening with L. Ron Hubbard's definition of auditing. And bringing back the tech support, opening. So that'll be fun. And then, when you mentioned Ohio, what do you think about me cutting to 88 lines about 44 women? She was from Ohio. She's a Scientologist. Not reflecting on Mark in any way. Okay.
That would be
times that musical cues popped up in my head that I'll play this in the background for this part. Like evil woman, of course.
Oh my God. That's amazing. I always get so astounded with the way you edit things together sometimes in Chicken Philosophy. Like, how far ahead were you thinking in some of these scenarios?
Oh God knows.
Usually it's post.
Having known Edward for a very long time, it goes and goes. Like, he'll come up with an idea, and then I'll see something more profound, and then something more, and then something more, and then something less, and then something more.
Yeah, but then make it absurd, and then make a joke about it, and then mock it, but then defend it, and then present it as seriously and a joke at the same time. It's like, so you don't think that this is a good idea? It's my idea. No, I live my life by this. Well, why are you making fun of it then? Because nothing should be taken seriously. That's another thing I live my life by.
Oh my God.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll let you get to the store before it closes, and we'll let you prepare for the coming of the missus and
the coming of the bride. The bride is at hand.
Yes. And I will begin my Sunday. It is 9 a.m. and I'm just getting started. And I don't know if you've noticed at the beginning everything was dark behind me, and now it's lit up by the.
It's alive. Yeah.
The indirect light coming off of the buildings to the west of me. There's no window in the east. So anyway. All right. Thank you, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I look forward to uploading it. All right. You too.
I look forward to it too.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
See you later.
We'll be in touch. Okay. Good night or good day.
Being our guest today on the Esoterinerd Podcast. Thank you, Joe Zabinski. By the way, the music you're hearing right now is from his YouTube channel. It's, I hope I have enough links to point you to it. It's called Mercy Without Restriction, and he posted it the other day. It's him playing. That's the title. And I asked him, hey, can I name the episode of the Esoterinerd Podcast in which Joe and I interview you, Mercy Without Restriction? He said, yes. So there it is. Special thanks to Camille and Kennerly and their guests. There's another couple of Swedish twins or whatever. The link is in the description below to their collaborative. There's two sets of twins. They were playing the drums. So long-time listeners or short-time listeners might be like, was it different this time? I think it was different. Yeah, the drums were different. So it was, instead of just harps, it was harps and drums. Anyway. Special thanks to, not Susumu Ueda. Susumu Ueda, because even though we're not hearing him right now, that was the music from the beginning of every Esoterinerd episode, this music. And usually it's the end. So special thanks to Susumu Ueda and his father and the other monks at Jofuku-in on Mount Koyasan. So his father's one of the monks at Jofuku-in, which is one of the 14 monasteries at the top of Mount. You know what I'm saying. The Shingon thing. So it's Shingon, and one of the kids got into synthesizers. You know what I mean? It's basically sums it up. And most importantly, special thanks to you, the Esoterinerd, watching this episode right now. So as we fade out here, there's going to be a link in the middle of the screen, as I mentioned before, it's me yesterday introducing this episode. Before it happened, I didn't know what the conversation was going to be like when I introduced that this episode was coming out. But if you're interested, if you've been watching this for 3 hours and you wouldn't mind watching another hour of me talking, then click the link that's appearing in the middle of the screen right now. And I wish you all the best, and go forth and love truth and knowledge and all that crap. And until next time.